A swordsman stands over a fresh corpse, his blade still wet. Then he buries two people and lays their own weapons on the graves, the only friends he ever had. He killed them himself. He wasn't born a monster, they forged one. A prodigy who steals any martial art on sight. A blade the demon cult aims wherever it wants, wearing a new face for every kill. It all traces back to one night, and the old man who raised him bleeding out in the snow. That was when the boy's eyes first burned red, screaming over the only family he had left. Years on, he steps onto the martial world stage under his own name, and they immediately hand him one last name to erase, someone he was never meant to touch. Rewind though. It opens on a quiet mortician who dresses the dead for burial, alone in a cold stone room. He wasn't always alone. Years earlier, an old man found him abandoned in the snow and took his small hand. The old man raised him strange, teaching him to read a corpse and name the art that killed it. The boy learned it all too fast. One night, the grandfather wakes, uneasy. He tells the boy to hold on until sunrise because something is coming for them. A sigil flares in the dark. A marked swordsman walks into the courtyard, sneering that his prey has been hiding like a rat. They square off across the broken bamboo. A blue blade splits the night, and something under a wide hat answers with a flash of red. The one-eyed swordsman recognizes Bu Chanyang and grips his blade while the masked figure mocks him for refusing the demon hall's vice lord's seat. Power hates rejection, but the masked attacker condemns him for abandoning power and surviving through lowly work. Their argument turns violent. Boer is pulled through the deadly memory. The masked attacker releases a violent surge. The masked attacker prepares another strike. He says his purpose is to atone. This attack is punishment for Chanyang's past. Bu Chanyang accepts the masked attacker's judgment and answers, so be it. Their clash reaches its decisive moment. Something falls in the darkness and the memory shifts. And Bu jolts awake, calling for his grandfather, then storms out, cursing how morticians get treated like dirt. But the devastated clearing stops him dead. He clenches his jaw, already dreading the answer. Then Bu finds Chanyang lying motionless and bleeding from the fatal attack. He can't breathe. Bu desperately cries out for his grandfather as he reaches him. Bu Chanyang slumps against the bamboo, then looks down in shock as Bu rushes toward him. He calls out to his grandson, but Bu sees his wounds and screams, "They did this." Then Chanyang says he'd rather follow his lost loved one into the afterlife. He doesn't want to remain without her. As his grandfather dies, Bu grips his weapon and strikes in grief. The guy stays beside Bu Chanyang's body, staring at the blood on his hand. His tears keep falling. The first shock fades, leaving grief he can no longer deny. Now Bu bows over Chanyang. Bu remembers his warning against revenge. He asks if those words were meant to protect him. His grandfather tried to stop him from chasing the killers. So Boer studies the wounds. Boer works backward through the attack. One rare upward sword stroke severed both arms at once. Chanyang's killer was highly skilled. Now Bu finds damage around the eye from that same upward technique. It's his first solid clue for identifying the killer. Bu follows the wound through the eye and sees how the strike pierces its target. The technique belongs to a demonic sword art. He confirms it, which points toward a demonic martial artist. And the wounds show that Chanyang faced more than one attacker. An accomplice struck him during the assault. Bu checks beneath his grandfather's tongue and finds discoloration from poison. That discoloration confirms rotten flesh poison. Bu's grandfather was poisoned before the blades finished the job. The attackers mastered a foreign martial art. The hooded figure says their incense memory device is key. The hooded figure warns that surviving this toxin strain requires monstrous resistance, then identifies Bu as a demonic path fighter. Our boy is the masked threat. The hooded figure watches him carefully, and Bu Chanyang lies motionless until his eye snaps open and starts bleeding, fury dragging him awake. A drop hits the floor while the officials review a report. The chin curtain starts mocking the visiting sect member for panicking at the demon hall. Then he notices the masked figure looming nearby. His mocking stops at once. Bu answers the danger around him by sealing his resolve in blood. The nearby sect members recoil as he turns his search into a binding oath. Then the witnesses understand that Bro will continue despite the risks, and he accepts every consequence and declares this oath the first step toward avenging Bu Chanyang. Boer walks off while the chapter slams the brakes. Then a dragon and tiger square up. The justice-preaching martial alliance faces the unorthodox faction. Their feud has poisoned the martial world for years. 5 alliance leaders step forward. At the palace, the cult wastes zero time. Its leaders launch the demonic succession plan. A candidate is executed immediately. So Bu keeps his head down, but these people feel wrong. He starts hunting for any bastard tied to Hong Su, the man who killed his grandfather. The hooded swordsman has every warrior shook. The woman calls him an immeasurable master, and when that hand reaches out, this shady power deal is officially open. Boer accepts the legacy. Boer claims his place as a demon successor. Behind the mask, he's already doing the math. Getting strong fast means walking straight through death. And the masked candidates line up, and Chief Instructor Golden Arm Blood Eyes Hiker Ryan immediately roars them into silence. Boo and the other disciples nearly jump out of their skin because the cult masters are about to inspect their bones and muscles. Lovely admissions process. Boo learns the stone marker is actually the first hidden gate, and an examiner confirms that his body meets the unseen requirement. He says, "You pass, come here, and let's Boo advance." Boo figures the martial arts contest may be optional and asks whether passing sends him onward. Meanwhile, a masked attacker kicks the restrained woman. Nearby, the conical hat onlooker calls the battered entrant unfit. Then the second gate presses Boo with a menacing force that stirs grief and doubt, and he remembers believing corpse washing is the only thing he ever learned. Still, this guy refuses to retreat. Now Boo holds firm under the pressure, and the examiner can't understand his resistance. He demands, "How can this be?" Boo's mortician training prepared him far better than anyone expected. Boo asks why they need a contest if bones and muscles decide everything. Still, he demands a chance to prove physical potential isn't all that matters. So the second gate answers with crushing force as the examiner starts the trial. He tells Bro not to worry, but a heavy strike comes down. Boo braces for impact. Mukhyun opens the second gate. The pale-haired examiner orders everyone to fight each other and survive. And the candidates enter the courtyard knowing this trial demands blood. One wounded fighter understands too late while our hero stays calm. Around him, the others choose their targets and move closer. And a masked candidate attacks first and drives his sword straight at Boer. He uses full force because any hesitation makes him the next target. Boer notices the blade at the last moment, but it's already dangerously close. He has no time to think. He must respond immediately, but barely slips the blade. Seo Jinha barrels in, gripping it, soaked in blood and screaming for Wai Unchung. Yeah, this girl has officially cancelled the calm conversation package. So another wounded candidate realizes the attacker deliberately avoided her ribs and barely missed her heart. A spear wielder displays his defeated opponent and challenges everyone still standing. Showing off only gives the survivors one clear target. The hooded strategist clocks the loudest threat as everybody's target. While the group starts panicking, the top-knot fighter proves him right by cutting down his screaming opponent. The killer regrets his strike immediately, but walking away doesn't save him. Bo grabs and restrains him from behind. As fear drives everyone against each other, a bearded elder explains why. Young fighters unfamiliar with death often lose control under its pressure. Then blades keep falling until one terrified candidate finally breaks down. Others remain trapped in defensive standoffs, too frightened to choose between attacking and retreating. But the survivors keep attacking without restraint, and fear strips away their reason. Nyungan Gang stays calm and notices something important among them. Jingak looks surprised as a bound, bloodied fighter speaks calmly. He points out that several candidates still haven't surrendered to the panic. So Boo wipes away the blood. Boo forces himself back into the fight. The battle around the pagoda continues until another wounded candidate takes a fatal blow and collapses. Boer stares through the blood as the crowd loses its damn mind, because the sex one survivor rule turned fear into a murder lottery. Boo Chunyang's lesson lands. The goal isn't killing, it's surviving. So a fellow survivor reaches for the fallen hand, willing them to hold on, while wounded Boo gets hauled onto stone for emergency repairs. And one wounded candidate grips his injured arm while another attack cuts through the courtyard. A chained candidate approaches the kneeling survivor among the corpses and demands an explanation that pulls him into the fighting. The chained candidate snaps and shouts, "I'll kill you." He charges with a spiked flail and leaves another candidate motionless. Dude keeps studying how the survivors attack. The latest clash leaves a roped candidate exhausted beside the wreckage, but watches the fighting. Boer decides not to remain exposed. He takes his bag and sheathed sword, preparing to leave. Now Boo approaches the chained candidate with controlled killing intent. The man readies his chained weapon, but the guy still holds the advantage. He challenges him directly. "Well, give it a try." Boer mocks the chained candidate's blade and provokes him into tearing the chain free. The candidate answers with a powerful slash and cuts down his opponent, but the committed swing leaves him exposed to everyone nearby. So, a robed swordsman takes the opening and strikes the chained candidate down. He mocks the help that gave him his chance. Bar removes a dangerous rival without trading a single blow. Then the robed swordsman sneers that his partner was useless, but Boo is already on him, promising he can kill him anytime. The bastard answers by laughing straight through the attack. And this guy notices Nyung Ungang carrying the wounded Sukjung. Nyung Ungang found Mukhan's secret manual and sword deep in the mountains. That makes the self-taught elder a dangerous successor candidate. Nyung Ungang teaches himself from Mukhan's manual, flaws and all, then charges in laughing and finishes bloodied. The major demonic sects have already taken notice. So meanwhile, storm clouds gather while the candidates keep fighting below. A blindfolded swordsman kills his opponents and cleans his blade. He calmly says, as expected, while the survivors continue fighting. Only 2 candidates remain alive among the bodies in the courtyard. One survivor tells the other, "You're the last one standing." Boer takes in the massacre as the second gate reaches its final duel. Seo Jinha snaps to attention as Boo cracks his knuckles and says the massacre went exactly as expected. Only 2 survivors remain, and Bro looks across the defeated candidates and stops beside a wounded survivor. The fight still isn't finished, so he keeps watching his final opponent. Bo sizes up the hooded fighter. Bo decides he can win. The bastard draws steel in the rain. Fine. fine, interview starts now. Our hero closes the distance, but the final swordsman attacks first. Bu has to defend himself at close range, but the swordsman buries Bu under rapid attacks and mocks his awkward dodging. Dude can't counter because every move keeps him alive. Even that isn't enough. Several attacks still wound him. The non-stop assault leaves Bu bloodied, but the wounds remain shallow. He studies every attack. He waits for his chance to turn the fight. Now the swordsman mocks our boy for cutting away only scraps of flesh. Still, he knows dodging and countering are separate problems. Bu's wounds make a clean strike harder, so he commits to one decisive blow. Then Bu survives because studying Nyung Eungang's victims revealed the swordsman's pattern. He's wounded, but he knows these attacks aren't random. Then Bu remembers every victim died from a strike to the heart or head. The swordsman's murderous intent always pulls his blade toward the upper body. Bro predicts the vital point attack and finally gets his opening. Bu is already doing the math. The blade hunts high, so he turns the swordsman's killing habit against him. The masked fighter sweeps in, but a voice suddenly cries, "Yoon Sol." Damn, worst possible timing. So Bro recalls his lesson about attacking without restraint. Veteran masters struggle to abandon the control built through years of training. A child using full force can still knock an adult unconscious, but realizes he must commit completely against Nyung Eungang. This guy pours everything into the counter and lets his bloodlust guide the strike. He abandons the restraint that could get him killed. His blade lands first and cuts down the attacking candidate. Now the candidate stays down. Another wounded candidate collapses after the clash. The remaining masked candidate screams and raises a weapon. Bu's decisive counter keeps him alive as the casualties pile up, and the courtyard goes silent as the bodies remain where they fell. One survivor asks, "Is it over?" But two candidates still face each other, and one looks surprised. The second gate isn't finished yet. A brutal strike lands. Bu is dragged out bound and screaming, while his captors announce his real name. Our boy's rage is doing nothing against those ropes, and behind this mess, the smudge stares him down like the bastard ordered the whole nightmare. Blood covers Bu's robes while his power keeps surging. The scarred elder watches him closely. Above them, the countdown falls to 76, which means the trial is still running. And the countdown drops all the way to 8, and the survivors brace for whatever happens when it reaches the end. They gather inside a wooden ship while violent waves carry them toward the next stage. Below deck, the injured man wakes after blood loss, checks the patient beside him, and wonders whether the demonic cult hired a miracle physician. Bu studies the other passengers. Bu recognizes several capable candidates. That confirms they're survivors of the first test. Everyone watches the new arrivals, unsure who might become an ally or rival. Then the guard orders everyone off, so the masked arrival and long-haired woman climb up ready for trouble. A hooded figure announces the next trial, so the candidates reach an isolated compound beside the water, and the grim surroundings make their position clear. Surviving the first test only earns them entry into another lethal stage. The authorities immediately order Bu and the other survivors to follow their hooded guide, and they move deeper into the remote compound. The hostile terrain leaves them no easy escape route, so the group crosses the rocky cove and reaches the bottom of the cliffs. Another hooded guide meets them there, and he assigns them a cave to use during the next stage. Inside the cave lodging, Bu finds survivors already fighting over positions and recruits. One woman insists she chose first, while another candidate objects. Bro stays cautious as their cooperation starts breaking down. The grunt apologizes for snapping. The other disciple awkwardly backs down. Meanwhile, two candidates head onward because the J checkpoint only keeps people whose deaths cause paperwork. One calmly grips his tassel, apparently fine with that policy, and a handler calls our boy by name. He chooses the cave route over joining the others. Blood stains the entrance, confirming that another deadly test waits inside. Bu studies the danger instead of backing away, and the masked handler recognizes his talent and calls him a prodigy. He orders Bu to prepare for whatever waits deeper inside. Bu gears up and marches straight into formation, where the robed instructor starts briefing the disciples on their new duties. Then the instructor reveals 10 martial halls surrounding a central mountain. Bo suspects the checkpoint's hidden origins also conceal the authorities' true motives. The travelers rush toward the same sword hall, but Bu hangs back and does the math. Advanced techniques mean jack without training. What he needs first is a proper foundation. Bu follows the forest path to a battered hut, where a hooded figure crowds him at the door. Then Bu follows the forest path, stays wary, then reaches a rundown hut and asks, "This is really a martial hall?" Now dude learns the hut has produced many top fighters throughout history. He recalls Bu Chunyang's lessons about the martial world. There may be real value hidden here. Bu's search ends when an unseen slash hurls him backward. The strike rips through the ground, revealing a sudden test from the hall's master. So, this guy counters instead of retreating. Their collision tears apart the surrounding ground. His attacker is Master Sawu, head of Nangya Pavilion's secret hall. This hidden training ground is far more dangerous than it seemed. Buya lands after the violent exchange. Buya stays upright. Master Sawu pauses at the unexpected result, checking who survived the clash. And Bu remains standing while Master Sawu lies defeated before him. Bro has survived the secret hall's brutal opening test. And Bu questions the fallen Master Sawu, but the test continues. Master Sawu answers with another powerful kick, tearing through the ground around them. Master Sawu raises his fists and introduces himself, then ties on a red sash and demands the proper title, but just stares, hand on his sword, then tells him to quit talking and start. Posturing invoice denied. Master Sawu repeats his authority and demands the proper title, but still isn't impressed, so Master Sawu drops the introduction and resumes the test. Then something strikes beside Bur. He jolts, his eye flying wide as he realizes this test just turned damn serious. But recognizes the beast martial art, races to counter it, then tears up mid-stance. Damn, whatever he remembered just punched harder than the technique. Now the lesson settles in and deepens Bu's understanding. His beast-like perception awakens, letting him sense danger through instinct instead of formal technique. So Bu's new instincts sharpen his awareness, warning him how fast any confrontation can turn violent. The chin curtain attacks, but the black-clad fighter blasts him backward and leaves him trembling. Around here, Samajin-in candidates hunt each other like promotions require murder. The bloodied swordsman rips through a savage slash, but the clash snaps right back into his face. Now he's gasping from the recoil. And later that night, an instructor assumes Bu is still lost in the forest. Another armed candidate races through the trees while blades strike around them. The hell path continues after dark. Meanwhile, Bor intercepts the masked swordsman. Bor pushes through the counterattack. He attacks again from above before the swordsman can recover. Then the watching instructor acknowledges how quickly dude has improved, but prepares another strike, forcing the masked swordsman to raise his blade and meet it. Then the masked swordsman challenges the guy to dodge and launches a rapid strike. Bu meets it head on. Their blades clash as the rain grows heavier, but the exchange continues when one fighter's counter breaks through and wounds the other. He recoils. Neither fighter yields as the 3-day duel carries on. Bu meets another attack. Bu suffers a bloody wound. Even that doesn't stop the brutal 3-day training. Now Bu silently endures every hit. Bu agrees to continue, immediately committing to another exchange despite his injuries. The next downward strike nearly breaks the sky, but 3 days of punishment sharpen his senses. Through the rain, he finally tracks the blade's path. Now Bu says, "I can see it, the path of the sword." He counters, and their clash releases a huge burst of force. His training has changed him. So Bu remains standing when the clash ends. Master Sawu can't believe he learned to read the sword's path in 3 days. And Bro withstands the final burst. The wounded Master Sawu ends their duel. He offers Bu his treasured celestial spring water. Spending his lifelong treasure on our hero isn't a waste. Master Sawu accepts the result and calls Bu the world's greatest prodigy. Bu's breakthrough in only 3 days surpasses everything he expected. And now, Bor tests that new understanding in another fierce exchange. He endures the opposing force. He answers with another sword strike. The training turns his breakthrough into practical control. Dude keeps applying his new understanding through another series of sword strikes. He declares, the fight isn't over. Surviving once isn't enough, because he wants reliable control. So Bor fixes his mind on the threatening opponent and attacks without hesitation. He narrows his focus to one decisive clash. The imagined training grows more intense. Then his imagined opponent meets the strike head-on. The clash strains our boy, but he remains standing. His new understanding holds against direct resistance. As Bu regains clarity, Master Sawu points him toward a greater goal. He should forget merely becoming one of the 10 demonic champions. Instead, he must become an official main sect disciple. The danger ahead requires power beyond Nangya Pavilion. Bu faces a hooded attacker whose presence overwhelms him. He realizes his current strength won't keep him alive against such an opponent. But Bu can't depend only on Nangya Pavilion's martial arts anymore. He decides to seek greater power elsewhere while his instructor listens to his decision. The instructor completely changes Bu's training and offers him another martial art. The guy accepts, though he questions the choice himself since he's barely started mastering Nangya Pavilion's basic techniques. Turns out main sect martial arts can't be taught through texts or spoken formulas. The instructor must pass the technique through direct combat. He starts demonstrating its power. So as the strike drops, Bu finally understands their 3-day duel. Every attack he endured carried the main sect's beast path techniques. Their fight was his lesson. Then Bor recalls each attack, understands the technique, and thanks the instructor. The instructor refuses his gratitude because the demonic hall ordered this training. Bro didn't expect their direct involvement. Well, the instructor says favors and obligations can't be separated in the martial world. Bor accepts that the demonic hall arranged everything. He thanks the instructor, he prepares to leave. And this guy gives the instructor a deep farewell bow. He carries the beast path teachings with him and leaves Nangya Pavilion. The instructor watches Bu depart and wonders where this hidden dragon came from. Bu's talent has surpassed everything he expected. Now rumors warn that a bloodstorm is coming to the Hell Domain, which senses far too many people nearby. His heightened awareness leaves him exhausted as more presences gather around him. Then dude realizes his heightened awareness exhausts him even while he's standing still, so he suppresses his senses during ordinary moments, and the flood of nearby presences fades until only a faint trace remains. Now Boo confirms the suppression works. He questions the demonic hall's true purpose, since they can't keep everyone training in the Hell Domain forever. Another stage must be coming. Boo considers what the demonic hall might be planning. He recalls stories of a peerless Grand Master who rivaled the heavenly demon 700 years ago. That martial legacy may shape the coming stage. And our hero reaches the Huawu sword sect beneath the rain. He needs formal sword instruction. He comes here to keep growing stronger. The Huawu sword sect is far grander than Nengya Pavilion. Boo doesn't stop to admire it. He formally asks to learn its sword arts, catching the instructor off guard. The instructor asks why Boo arrives half a month late, and Bro explains that he trained at Nengya Pavilion for 2 weeks first. With that settled, they head inside to discuss his instruction. So Boo confirms that those 2 weeks were spent training at Nengya Pavilion. Jingak introduces himself as the beginner hall's head. He tells our boy to address him as brigade leader, showing his authority here. So Jingak tests Boo's determination right away. He demonstrates the Huawu sword sect's technique with a powerful strike. Boo's formal instruction starts with immediate practice. Boo avoids Jingak's sword strike, and that reaction makes Jingak question his experience. Jingak presses him for an answer. Boo admits there's something unexpected about his training history, and turns out Bro has never studied swordsmanship before arriving here. Not once. Jingak asks whether he truly has no sword training because his performance says otherwise. Boo confirms it again. He has never trained with a sword. Jingak remembers that his records describe him as a scholar, yet the guy cleared the second trial hall with sharp reflexes and deadly judgment. He even chose the cave himself. But Jingak realizes Boo has done all this without any foundation. Proper sword training could push his talent much further. That possibility turns Jingak's curiosity into serious interest. Then Jingak begins with the written basics and asks Boo to read the characters. Full understanding can come later. Dude listens, follows the explanation, and copies the stance immediately. Jingak can't believe how quickly he understands it. Jingak realizes Boo absorbs each lesson as soon as he hears it. He tries a stronger sword demonstration to test that talent properly. This guy stops Jingak's arm before the lesson goes any further. Boo responds with a powerful sword sequence. Dangerous energy surges as he drives the strike through. His talent clearly goes far beyond copying basic stances. Then Jingak confirms his suspicion and gives Boo a more focused test. Bro must imagine an opponent and use the Huawu 13 forms against them. Boo asks what Jingak means by an opponent. Our hero follows the instruction and pictures an opponent before him. He directs the Huawu 13 forms toward that imagined target. The basic exercise becomes a focused combat rehearsal. Boo uses Return the Wind to its source with enough force to tear through the training area. An observer recoils as the strike passes. Boo stays alert until the attack fades. His imagined battle produces real destructive power. So Bro keeps fighting the imagined opponent as the previous strike fades. He follows with the Huawu 13 forms, third form. Boo drives through the clash and enters Drifting Cloud, Veil of Mist. He can already chain the sect's techniques under pressure. The force of Boo's training is staggering. More importantly, our boy is changing the technique as he learns it. His adapted form no longer matches the Huawu sword sect's original method. Something else is mixing into his sword art. Something feels deeply wrong in Boo's altered righteousness within the demonic road. He has fused two opposing forces into the Huawu sword sect's technique, a sign that he's hiding another power. And so, Boo considers merging both forces completely, but holds back to maintain control. Even the limited fusion releases dangerous power, and his awakened state starts surfacing anyway. Now Boo turns the unstable fusion into a direct attack. His rage over Boo Chunyang's murder overwhelms his earlier restraint, and he cuts through the confrontation. And Bora declares that he's hunting the person who murdered his grandfather. He commits fully and unleashes the Huawu 13 forms 7th sequence. Then Boo's awakened state takes control as the 7th sequence reaches full force. The technique carries the principle, overturn the seas, cross the 4 oceans. So the guy drives the technique straight through his opponent's defense. Their swords collide and both fighters bleed. The battle still doesn't end. The opponent's next attack slices across Boo's mask and knocks him backward. Boo realizes this enemy moves faster than anyone he's ever faced. So Boo tightens his grip and answers the sudden pressure head on. He launches forward, he drives a powerful diagonal slash toward the opponent. Boo's committed assault forces another brutal exchange. The masked opponent cuts through his attack and wounds him again. Ordinary swordcraft can't overcome that speed, so Bro steadies his blade for one decisive counter. So Bor drops all restraint. Bor unleashes every remaining Huawu 13 form together. The strike cracks the opponent's mask, but the wounded fighter survives. The opponent immediately answers with another slash. Their lethal duel continues. And the masked opponent breaks through Boo's defense and their weapons collide again. A follow-up slash reaches this guy, but crossing strikes rip across Boo's torso and draw blood. Boo freezes, realizing all 13 Huawu forms still aren't enough. Boor ends the clash bloodied and exhausted, but he keeps hold of his sword, certain the stronger opponent won. He accepts defeat. Then, so bro tells the examiner, I was defeated. The examiner answers, you passed. Boor has shown enough practical skill to advance. The test only measures whether our hero understands the Huawu 13 forms and can use them. Despite losing, his demonstration is enough. Then the examiner orders Boor to continue into the junior hall. Boor accepts respectfully. Another instructor warns that his sword carries unusually strong killing intent. So dude takes that warning seriously and still enters the junior hall, and the instructors there are already questioning whether he belongs. Boor arrives to claim his advancement, but a confident disciple confronts him. He says, I don't know who you are, and blocks Boo's welcome. The junior hall instructor refuses to test our boy, and every training slot is full, so he orders Boo to leave. Now Boo stands before the intermediate hall disciples in tense silence, and one disciple says he trained 15 days at Nangya Pavilion. He uses that experience to defend his place and challenge Boo's right to stay. The red-robed instructor finally accepts Boo's beginner hall pass and orders him to sit with the disciples. He warns that poor sword control can injure the wielder. A disciple demonstrates with a powerful strike. An elder explains that basic swordsmanship is one training stage, not a contest for victory. So, the instructor lets everyone test their abilities, and the confident disciple immediately challenges Bror, and he singles Boo out before the intermediate hall. The guy must prove that he earned his advancement, and the instructor condemns the reckless challenge, but Boo accepts it anyway. He says Jingak taught him swordsmanship in the beginner hall. This duel will prove whether his advancement is legitimate, and the instructor allows it because martial artists must understand their own ability. Bo and the disciple take wooden swords before the junior hall trainees. Their argument over Bo's qualifications becomes a direct test. The trainee says bravado won't win, but Bro suddenly counters and knocks him down. The wooden sword flies from his hand. Boor takes an unsettling satisfaction in it, exposing a dangerous killing instinct. Then the duel moves into close range. Another forceful slash bears down on this guy. He catches it with careful footing and precise sword placement. The trainee immediately raises his wooden sword for another aggressive strike. The overhead strike crashes into Boo's guard, but the impact feels strangely clumsy to the disciple. He mistakes that feeling for inexperience. Calling Boo a beginner, he attacks again with complete confidence. So Boo calmly deflects the next strike, proving that awkward exchange came from his control. The disciple finally realizes he underestimated Dude. His confidence gives way to anger as he loses the advantage. So Boo decides the duel is unfolding close to his prediction. His movements come from Nangya Pavilion's Beast Dao. People dismiss it as basic training, though only veteran masters can fully control it. Now our hero uses the Beast Dao to take control and counter at close range. He overpowers the disciple through repeated exchanges. His final strike sends the challenger flying. The fallen challenger still refuses to admit Boor is stronger. Another swordsman attacks Boo's hand with the Fire Rain sword art. Boor recognizes the deadly technique. Boor prepares his counter, but Bro blocks the Fire Rain strike before it lands. The swordsman still forces his blade dangerously close to Boo's jaw. Several masked enemies surround Boo. He knows he must attack first. Our boy moves before the masked enemies can overwhelm him. He unleashes the blood-breaking strike and drives the whole group back. Their formation breaks apart. Another swordswoman immediately uses a killing move from the Asura sword sect, but braces himself as her sweeping blade closes in, and she curses Boor for dodging her killing move again and again, but another sword catches him across the head, leaving him bleeding. Then the heavy impact alarms the junior hall disciples and catches Jingak's attention. The attacking swordsman follows with a powerful World Ruin 13th move. Bro withstands the World Ruin 13th move and hits back hard. His counter sends the swordsman flying and ends the exchange. Then the defeated swordsman collapses into a pool of blood. Junior hall disciples rush closer, fearing the wound may be fatal. All they can whisper is, "He's..." Boor's counter tears through the training ground and drops the challenger. He strikes the disciple's Danjong vital point with perfect precision. As blood pours out, an observer recognizes Nangya Pavilion's teachings in Boor's swordwork. Now Jingak refuses to accept any excuses for the duel's violent end. Training isn't real combat, and he makes that clear. Bo's precision proves his skill, but also reveals dangerous killing intent. So Jingak's warning comes with proof from real combat. Hidden weapons, deep wounds, fallen fighters, and restrained victims all make one thing clear. Physical strength alone won't keep Boo alive. Even so, Jingak says the guy only passed beginner hall because of his physical potential. The disciples can't believe it. He ignores Boo's sword skill and angrily tells him, "Get lost." Once the others leave, Jingak privately asks whether Boo plans to advance. Boo decides he won't move up, and Dude says he'll stay if advancing means leaving the intermediate hall. Jingak asks why, but explains that building stronger foundations matters more than gaining rank. This guy claims he hasn't learned anything, but Jingak knows better, but mastered the beast sword and dismantled the Sura sword sect's chaotic sword style. Still, Boo remembers the warning. Learning beyond the How 13 forms means immediate execution. That threat stays with Bro as his training continues. Jingak teaches him for 4 days and tests his ability from every angle, yet Boo's claimed inexperience still doesn't match his incredible progress. And Jingak finally tests Boo in a serious sword clash. Boo's control proves he truly started learning only 4 days ago. Jingak has to accept his extraordinary talent, though our hero leaves the exchange wounded. So Boo keeps attacking despite his injury, but Jingak counters and stops him. Technical mastery still isn't enough for demonic martial art, and that troubles Jingak. Jingak explains that demonic martial arts demand real killing intent, but recognizes the same principle behind Jingak's earlier lesson. Jingak also knows its cost firsthand. Then he admits that he has lived by a killing sword for years. The people Jingak killed still haunt him. That trauma has weakened his martial arts. He warns Bro that lethal intent can also destroy the swordsman using it. Jingak's warning reveals why martial arts have declined. Practitioners dwell on their pasts instead of improving. Boer starts wondering what that means for his own path. But an unnamed man suddenly asks our boy for his name, and the direct question catches him off guard, and he gets ready to answer. So the martial teacher says Boo has a serious problem. Before Boo can respond, the teacher suddenly attacks to test him. Dude must compete against 6 prodigies trained since childhood. To close that gap, the teacher offers his self-created Junro Musang. It's dangerous. Boo accepts Junro Musang, despite knowing it could disable his arms. He channels its power into a direct clash. The impact makes his demonic power surge. Then an elder presents a martial arts manual to the gathered disciples. Boo's training shifts from that dangerous demonstration into a formal lesson. The guy raises his head when the lesson turns toward the manual, but its contents make him question what pursuing strength will demand from him. Boo Chunyang presents the manual. Boo remembers the contempt corpse cleaners receive. Honest work earns ridicule, while martial violence earns respect. Bro questions those values, and Boo sees the hypocrisy clearly. Cleaning corpses brings contempt, but killing someone brings admiration. The manual's principles trigger a powerful response and offer him the strength he needs. Now this guy stays cautious as Boo Chunyang takes him outside. He teaches Mujum Sung Yugum, meaning no sword triumphs over the sword. Boo must defeat armed opponents while carrying no blade. Boo Chunyang swings a branch and nearly catches Boo across the neck. The strike shows how sword technique can turn any object into a weapon. Then our hero doesn't simply copy the move and instead finds his own answer. He says, "Then I will use my opponent's blade." He channels power through a bamboo leaf and uses it as a weapon. Boor releases the power stored inside the leaf, but Boor Chunyang withstands it. His grandfather watches closely, judging whether Dude truly understands the weaponless sword principle. And Boo staggers under his grandfather's sudden counterattack, but he stays focused. Boo Chunyang closes the distance and forces him to use the lesson under pressure. So the exchange shocks everyone watching as Boo Chunyang raises the leafy branch and he releases enough power to seize their attention. Boo reaches toward it and accepts the next test. Bro pushes forward through the dust, but Boo Chunyang catches his hand and a low chuckle follows as he stops the guy cold. The lesson still has him beaten. Boo Chunyang pins Boo down and laughs when he can't break free. Once released, Bro guards against another strike. His grandfather stays calm because the test continues. So Boo Chunyang studies his grandson and decides a wolf cub remains a wolf. This guy draws on his power and reaches forward, ready to fight back. Boor finishes the lesson, already eager for another confrontation. He returns through the second hall, where fights can begin without warning. He stays alert along the mountain path. Boor hears footsteps behind him. Boor stops to identify whoever is approaching. He follows the sound. He finds a headbanded swordsman blocking his route. Another confrontation is waiting, and Dude keeps crossing the dangerous second hall alone. But 5 swordsmen quickly surround him. They call themselves the 5 Peak Swords and claim they're geniuses among geniuses. With that settled, they tell Boor to prepare for a fight. But Seo Jinha notices the group has missed someone else nearby. She warns there's one more, just as a hidden attacker suddenly strikes. The hidden attacker cuts down one of the 5 Peak Swords from behind. His companions move to retaliate, but Seo Jinha slashes another across the back. The wounded swordsman drops with a critical injury. Then the remaining swordsmen stumble back as their formation falls apart. They recognize Seo Jinha. They shout her name. She simply raises her sword. She prepares to attack again. Seo Jinha blocks the survivors from interfering because she came for our hero. Her full attention settles on him. "We need to talk." Then the frightened swordsmen demand to know why Seo Jinha attacked them. She calls them small fry and orders them to leave. They retreat and threaten revenge, leaving Seo Jinha alone with Boor. So Boo ignores the fleeing swordsman's threats, but Seo Jinha keeps her focus on him. She asks him directly where his allegiance lies. Bro doesn't get enough time to answer her with words. Seo Jinha attacks and forces him into a direct clash. She keeps pressing him for an answer. Their clash gives way to Master Sawoo's lesson about the first form, Hyunjuhyun. Every student has learned it, but copying the movements isn't enough. True mastery means making the form your own. He singles out Boo to prove it. Now Master Sawoo orders our boy to perform Hanjuhyun before the class. class. Bu remembers Bu Chunyang's calm instruction and prepares his own interpretation. This public test will measure how well he adapts the form. Bro senses an attack before finishing the test and blocks a hooded opponent's blade. The demonstration becomes a real fight. Meanwhile, Bu attacks again in mid-air, but the counter-strike knocks him downward. He crashes below while the fight continues, and the guy completes the demonstration and leaves deep scars across the training floor. The evaluator studies them, then sends him back, and the evaluator immediately calls the next candidate forward. One fighter gets driven down before Bu faces another candidate. Bu braces as the swordsman draws his weapon and releases his power. Another confrontation starts right there. Then instead of Hanjuhen, Dude uses an unexpected counter and ruins the swordsman's prediction. Their blades collide with greater force. Bu follows through, but Seo Jinha accuses him of serving the opposing side. He doesn't understand, so she tells him to stop pretending. So the loose participation process leaves the forest unguarded. A wolf-like beast attacks and forces a cloaked participant down. So the wounded beast triggers a hidden bamboo trap, proving someone prepared an ambush. This guy hears it may target a spy. He asks whether a traitor joined them, and Seo Jinha decides he isn't the suspect. Seo Jinha warns Bu to stay alert, but he's done tolerating her attacks. He threatens to cut her down if she continues. Neither knows who the spy is. Bu remembers giving everything to Master Nongya Pavilion's arts and the Fire Rain sword sex techniques. He'll need every lesson for this confrontation. The memory ends as he completes his strike. But a warning comes from the darkening forest. It's about to begin. Everything around them goes quiet as the next stage draws near. The candidates gather inside the pavilion for instructions before the forest trial begins. Mukion admits martial principles can feel tedious. Even masters shaped by countless battles still study advanced theory. That discipline keeps them alive when danger comes. And Bro remembers Bu Chenyang wishing him good fortune in battle, and the mountain grounds become more dangerous, and a sudden gong alerts every disciple. Then Bu Chenyang's words return. The time has come. Rain falls across the mountain as the gong signals the approaching fight. The candidates ready themselves. The gong calls the black-clad candidates into formation, and the trial authority formally announces the third trial has begun. Then the candidates expected this to be their second trial, but realizes their earlier fight to the death already counted. Remembering that violence, he knows this trial will demand even more blood. The trial authority gives one direct order: kill each other. Everyone falls silent. Surviving now means fighting the candidates standing beside them. Bo feels their killing intent. Now the rules leave no way around the slaughter. Candidates can hide or flee instead of fighting. However, the safe territory will keep shrinking as masked killers hunt anyone remaining behind. So the masked killers close in on anyone outside the shrinking safe territory. Bro senses their killing intent from far away. They're martial arts masters, which means hiding won't keep him safe. Now, a trial elder says every candidate for the 10 must face them. Fighting back is allowed. He releases his power. He makes the choice clear: defeat the masked killers or die. The elder demonstrates the deadly force waiting beyond the safe territory, but understands the trial now. He must face trained masters while surviving the other candidates. And our boy moves carefully through the forest after drawing too much attention earlier. Other candidates may target him. He studies each danger before choosing to fight. Bu spots an armed masked group guarding a secluded house ahead, and he closes in quickly but keeps his true strength hidden. Now Bu remembers his earlier clash with 2 attackers and draws his sword. That ambush taught him enough. He stays ready as the danger approaches. And a wounded candidate suddenly blocks Bu's path and begs for protection. 3 killers are chasing him through the forest. So Du checks the candidate's wounds before agreeing to help. The injuries are real. 3 pursuers are also closing in together, leaving little time to act. Bu hides the wounded candidate before the 3 pursuers arrive. They lose his trail. Their leader promises to kill him personally and orders the others to search nearby. Then meanwhile, the guy strikes the fugitive hard enough to launch him past the pursuers. The candidate lands in the dirt beside a secluded thatched roof house. The wounded fugitive survives Bu's rough escape and crashes beside the secluded house. Its occupants cautiously investigate, while the 3 pursuers remain behind. But Bu feels approaching footsteps through the ground using his beast path training. The vibrations reveal their position. He detects the unseen threat early, so Bu still doesn't trust the rescued candidate, who catches up and questions him. Nervous, the young man explains that the third trial forced him into the forest. Since Bu has already hidden him, the young man asks to remain under his protection. Bu agrees. They continue traveling together through the ongoing third trial. Boar stays calm as they cross the mountains, then senses trouble ahead. They slow down. They carefully investigate the disturbance. Then they find a hooded fighter swearing revenge for his fallen brothers. Another fighter towers over someone wounded, and violence is seconds away. Boar and the young man move closer, but a masked attacker waits above their path. The attacker dives at them, and Boar blocks the blade head on. The masked attacker takes several bloody slashes, but another fighter still threatens them. Boar follows through. Boar cuts that fighter down with one decisive strike. and Boo walks away holding his bloodied sword while the young man recoils from the blood. They examine the fallen fighter. They notice another dangerous confrontation nearby. Now Bro faces masked swordsman standing among several bodies. Despite his wounds, he refuses to surrender and strikes first, catching them off guard. Boo answers with a powerful sword technique, but one attacker blocks it head-on. Another breaks through and slashes him, sending our hero crashing back with a deep wound. Then one masked attacker takes a wound, but the others surround Boo before he recovers. Surrender means death. He pushes through the pain. He launches another determined sword strike. Boo cuts one attacker across the chest. The others rush him together. He catches both blades while controlling his sword and baton. Even wounded, he doesn't let them overwhelm him. And another masked attacker joins before Dude can press his advantage. The newcomer prepares to strike while Boo remains surrounded. So meanwhile, a wounded candidate finally kills the person she's been hunting. She declares, "My revenge, I've done it." Her target lies dead, but she still has to survive the trial. An onlooker praises Boo's lethal skill, while another fighter faces a brutal finishing strike. Blades collide again, and our boy gets no time to recover. His attackers are already closing in. Boo blocks the hooded attacker's sudden dagger assault and deflects every follow-up strike. He spins into a kick, knocks the attacker away, and disarms him. Boo takes control, and so Boo's hidden power stirs as another fighter's deception is exposed. The shocked fighter asks when his trick was discovered. His opponent answers, "From the very beginning," confirming the trap has failed. Bro knew his opponent was hiding underground from the start. He also noticed hidden weapons strapped across the man's body. The exposed fighter laughs and admits he was curious. Boo says he's studied how deceptive fighters operate. The man can't accept that the guy understood the entire trap. The masked opponent drops the tricks and attacks Boo directly. He smashes through the surrounding structure. He brings his weapon down with crushing force. Another close-range clash begins. Then the heavy strike wounds Boo. The pain pulls him into that dangerous demonic state. He catches the next attack blade against blade, then forces his opponent backward. But Bro breaks through the man's defense and cuts his shoulder. As the fighter staggers, Boo says discovered hidden weapons are useless. His final advantage is gone. The wounded man can't rely on his hidden weapons anymore, but he won't surrender. This guy holds position while both fighters judge whether the injured man can continue. So the man attacks again. Boo drives an upward sword strike through him. His opponent collapses. Boo remains standing, exhausted but victorious. Meanwhile, Boo ends another fight deeper in the forest. His final opponent dies from his wounds, leaving him alone among the fallen fighters. Then Boo confirms the fight is over, though he's exhausted and covered in blood. Another confrontation is already coming, and he prepares to meet it. And Boo lies wounded after the fight, but his faint smile shows he's conscious. He forces himself upright. He draws his sword as someone approaches through the forest. Another fighter closes in through the forest. Boo meets the attack before it can land. Their swords collide again and again, throwing him into another fight for survival. Our hero turns Firestorm Sword Hall's supposedly impractical basics into lethal counters. The deadly secret assassins expect those fundamentals to fail, but Boo cuts them down. Now Boo pushes deeper into the trial despite his wounds. Every higher level makes survival in this hell harder. Two attackers close in, but he sweeps them away with a pole weapon. The fleeing fighters strike back with flexible weapons, leaving one fighter badly wounded. Their escape still fails. They scatter through the forest and seek another plan. Meanwhile, two overseers watch the fighting from a mountain peak. The senior overseer urgently demands a report as the killing continues below. Then 3 days pass, but 41 candidates are still alive. The trial authority loses patience and orders the next stage revealed. His subordinate confirms the order. The culling was clearly running behind schedule, and one enemy thinks he has caught Boo off guard, but Bro moves first. He cuts down the surrounding swordsman. He braces for another assault. Boo realizes the assassins hold the advantage on open ground. He decides to reposition before the next attack. Nyung Ungang studies the trial as the wounded hero prepares to strike back. So the trial authority orders the deadly secret assassins into Firestorm Sword Hall. This forces the remaining candidates into a planned massacre inside the hall. A lone candidate reaches Firestorm Sword Hall and finds blood across the floor. 3 armed disciples wait inside, ready to confront whoever caused it. So search squads lock down the sect grounds and sweep every room. They ask whether their hidden target is still somewhere inside the hall, and a white horse squad member corners our boy and claims he can't escape. Boo attacks first. The squad warns each other as he blocks their rear assault. Boo fights the surrounding swordsman at close range and draws blood. One fighter falls, left exposed, while the others close in around him. Bro answers the surrounding fighters with a hard sword strike. The clash injures his hand. An assassin attacks before he recovers, but Boo blocks the assassin's next attack and realizes the hall is too cramped. He forces his way forward while another masked swordsman waits ahead. The guy decides he can manage the narrow corridor by separating his attackers. He cuts down the first opponents before the next group surrounds him. Boo strikes at the masked fighter, who blocks and counters with a whip. The whip hits the wall, and the others shout, "Now's our chance." They rush Boo together. Then Boop's counter makes one fighter cry out. Another senses a more dangerous presence and suddenly freezes. The attackers realize something inside the hall has changed. Then the dangerous presence crushes the fighter's nerve. A masked attacker takes a slash across the chest. Another raises his hand and warns everyone to stop before they share his fate. Dude answers their warning with another clean strike and keeps advancing deeper through the hall. So Boo survives another blade at close range and leaves two opponents on the floor. One survivor recognizes the technique and asks if this guy used the fiery rain sword. His training is exposed. The injured fighter starts recognizing Boor, but another attacker mocks him for asking the target's name. Boor refuses to answer and their blades crash together. Now the attacker survives the clash and claims the fiery rain sword sect teaches only defense. Bro keeps control of his sword as the injured fighter watches. His training is exposed, but his identity remains hidden. And Boo wonders whether the masked attacker knows Profound Earth and Profound Heaven. The attacker catches him distracted and attacks before our hero can decide. Now Boo blocks the strike and realizes the narrow corridor favors the attacker's weapon. He moves toward open ground to remove that advantage. Boo braces as the clash continues nearby. The swordsman calls his resistance disappointing and advances with the chain weapon. And the swordsman attacks his hooded opponent, driving them into a violent exchange. He follows with another sweeping strike, but the result isn't clear. Bro braces against the white horse whip strikes coming together. They break through his defense, they trap him under constant attacks. The attacker declares that the white horse whip will kill Boo and launches his finishing strike. Our boy can block it with Profound Earth and Profound Heaven. However, his damaged sword can't overpower the whip, so he searches for another method. Then Boo deliberately insults the white horse whip user. The man attacks in fury, giving Boo a strike he can predict. So Dude times his counter as the strike comes in. Their weapons collide, the force breaks the assault and throws his opponent backward. Both fighters prepare to continue after the failed finishing move. Now Boo is bloodied by the clash, but his resolve only hardens. He turns the failed finishing strike into a decisive counter. So the guy finishes the fight and stands over his fallen opponent. The victory delays him. He prepares to rejoin the selection struggle. Boor starts moving back, but a masked fighter senses another killing demon nearby. The killing demon closes in and blocks Boor's path through the selection grounds. But Boo suspects the killing demon's slaughter has turned this area into a restricted zone. He can't flee because surviving the selection still means fighting. Bro readies himself, but the first attack cuts him before he can respond. And the masked fighter waits while the wounded Boo pushes forward and attacks. His injuries slow him. The masked fighter calmly draws him into another deadly clash. The masked fighter brings down a powerful strike that nearly overwhelms this guy, but drives through it with his sword, but the impact leaves him badly hurt. His opponent still controls the fight. Already bloodied, Boor blocks another slash from the mask-killing demon. The impact throws him backward and proves his opponent still has control. Then Bro steadies his damaged sword and refuses to retreat. Across from him, the masked killing demon calmly prepares another attack. Boo realizes the masked fighter will attack the instant he moves. He stays still and remembers Mukyon's lesson about predators. Carnivores are faster, but prey escapes by changing direction without warning. Mukyon explains that ordinary predators struggle when prey runs in a zigzag pattern. Better predators still catch it. Our hero understands they predict the prey's next turn instead of reacting afterward. Then Boo asks how anyone can defeat prey that keeps changing direction. Mukyon's answer is simple: match its movement. Boo trains until he can strike where the target is heading. Now Dude uses that timing and intercepts the incoming sword before it reaches him. Their blades collide, stopping the attack, but the masked fighter calmly draws another blade. The fight continues. The masked opponent cuts down every swordsman who approaches, turning the selection ground into a restricted zone. His bloodied weapon tells Boo that the first strike was only the beginning. So another swordsman rushes in, but the masked opponent cuts him down immediately. He wounds a second contender who refuses to surrender. The survivors watch in furious shock. Our boy notices the next attack too late, but he doesn't retreat. He cuts through the thrown blades. He charges forward despite his wounds. And during the clash, Boo remembers the martial artist who killed Boo Chan-young. His anger returns, reminding him why he must survive and grow stronger. And every fight here prepares Bro to face Boo Chan-young's highly skilled killer. Before the guy can recover, a hooded challenger asks, "Are you Boo?" Someone has singled him out. Still wounded, Boo gives a grim answer, though part of it is unclear. The challenger swings down hard, forcing Bro into another deadly clash without any rest, but narrowly dodges the blade. Boo endures the force behind the attack. His beast-like instincts predict where the strike will land before it reaches him. Then the challenger praises Boo's instincts and calls him a possible 10 candidate. He keeps attacking anyway, while this guy prepares to counter. Their clash draws every remaining contender's attention. A woman angrily says not everyone entered because they wanted a place among the 10. The group isn't united. The challenger senses something disturbing when his weapon meets Boo's. Boo holds firm as he remembers Bu Chunyang's murdered body. He'll survive the selection and avenge his grandfather. So Neung Ungang realizes each clash drives the Oho Danmun Blade's internal force into Dude. The pressure makes Boo cry out, but he keeps his sword ready. His opponent sees the technique working, but Neung Ungang explains that the absorption technique creates a pulling force. That pull interferes with Boo's weapon control during every exchange. His opponent uses it to keep throwing Boo's sword off course. The pull ruins an opponent's sword path and breaks their form. Once they're exposed, the user can finish them. Boo wonders whether that makes Heibei's Peng clan the strongest sect, and the elder points out one serious weakness. The technique also pulls its user toward the enemy. Our hero sees his opening when the swordsman closes in for another strike. Boo waits for the absorption force to drag his opponent closer. The swordsman attacks in the Peng clan of Heibei's name. Boo strikes first. Boo wounds him before his form can be broken again. Then the Peng clan swordsman reels after Bro pierces his defense. He attacks again, but Boo avoids the assault and counters immediately. Another wound lands and the absorption style loses its advantage. Then Boo's counter sends the swordsman crashing away. That confirms the technique's pull can be turned against its user. It works. Our boy prepares to repeat the method while he still has control. Boo tests the counter with more force, but it still can't finish him. Years of training have made the swordsman's body too sturdy. Boo needs a stronger version instead of repeating the same weak strike. So Bro stops trying to overpower him and remembers Mukhan's late strike principle. He must wait until their attacks collide. Once the enemy commits, there won't be time to adjust. Now Boo waits for the next clash. Boo catches the exact moment. He drives his sword into the exchange and follows through. His opponent can't disrupt the technique in time. Boo's perfectly timed strike tears through the clash. He presses forward before his opponent can recover or absorb the force. The swordsman blocks the renewed attack and asks, how long will that pathetic trick work? The guy stays focused because his counter isn't finished. So the swordsman commits to another name technique and lunges. Boo has already read the attack. As it closes in, he says, I've been waiting. And Boo releases the counter once the swordsman can't adjust. The impact breaks his attack and throws him through the air. Both fighters are wounded after the exchange. They face each other on the mountain ridge, waiting to see who can continue. And the swordsman is bleeding and exhausted, so Dude attacks again. His next swift strike finally brings the man down. But the swordsman survives and admits Boo understood the mystic profound sword better than expected. He grips his weapon, he rises again. So the swordsman calls this guy his most interesting challenger yet. Neither man backs down and they fight until dawn. Then by sunrise, the swordsman finally collapses from all his wounds. Their long duel has pushed both men close to death. Boo remains standing because the swordsman misjudged his demon sword. He says, you underestimated the demon sword, bids farewell, and strikes decisively. Bor finishes the fatal strike. Bor leaves his defeated opponent behind. The selection continues through the mountains and into the forest. But Bro can barely breathe after another fight, and the trial doesn't pause. Another opponent approaches, so he hides his exhaustion and prepares again. Meanwhile, isolated candidates across the forest are surrounded and forced into combat. Armed groups attack exhausted rivals before they can recover. Everyone is fighting to survive. Candidates rush each other. One fighter gets thrown from the clash. Nearby, a swordswoman blocks an incoming strike but still gets wounded. Nobody has time to rest, including Boor. So elsewhere, coordinated groups ambush isolated candidates throughout the forest. One surrounded swordsman calmly breaks through them with a powerful strike. Being alone doesn't make him helpless. Then the candidates keep cutting through each other in brutal group clashes. When the latest fight ends, only one swordsman remains standing among the defeated. A wounded swordswoman defeats another candidate, but the victory leaves her exposed. Our hero attacks before she recovers and lifts her by the throat. And the wounded woman endures the attack and asks, how about this? Boor hears an unseen request and answers with a challenge. And why should I do that? Boo's challenge doesn't stop them, and the surrounding attackers draw their swords again. The woman takes another blow but keeps watching Boor. She decides he's too proud and independent to trust anyone easily. Now the wounded woman asks Bro to form a temporary alliance. He'll fight the remaining candidates together and won't betray each other, but considers it because cooperation may be their best chance to survive. Then our boy weighs the alliance, but So Jinha's injuries drag his buried grief back up. His demonic power awakens again, and another candidate retreats from him. Now Seo Jinha orders the remaining candidates to leave, but they raise their weapons instead. Negotiation is over. Boo must decide whether he'll stand with her. So the armed survivors close in before Boo and Seo Jinha can slip away. She warns that they're already too late, and everyone prepares to fight. And nobody wants to attack first. A gray-haired swordsman urges them forward. The others recognize Dude as Nangya Pavilion's Beast Dao practitioner and focus on him. Now the candidates realize Boo and Seo Jinha have joined forces. The pair prepare to defend each other as the others surround them. One candidate launches a dangerous attack. The survivors recognize young Shuisan, the Hellblood sex poison, and abandon the open ground. As the poison moves across the area, they enter a cave with a narrow entrance. So inside the long passage, the guy senses black-clad pursuers rushing toward him. The armed group groups collide at once. Their attacks break the surrounding rock. So the broken rock is only the start. A powerful attack tears through the smoke. A masked attacker appears. Boo and Seo Jinha are trapped beside the restricted zone. Two masked soul fiends block the passage. Seo Jinha recognizes the restricted zone. They can't cross its boundaries safely, which means they can't retreat. And as the soul fiends approach, Seo Jinha grips her sword and prepares to fight. Boo does the same because neither of them has another way out. Bro and Seo Jinha stand back to back and raise their swords. The masked soul fiends surround them, so they commit to fighting together. But more soul fiends emerge through the smoke, and Boo calls them annoying pests. One attacker opens the clash with a descending strike at Seo Jinha. Then this guy parries the descending strike, but more attackers quickly close around him. The restricted zone becomes the battlefield that will decide the 10 demon champions. The masked swordsmen swarm Boo before he can recover. Mukhan steps in, counters their assault, and raises his sword for a decisive strike. Mukhan tears through the masked attackers and kills several at once. Boo gets room to continue fighting, but more enemies rush him immediately. He blocks their blades until the long clash leaves him breathing heavily. Then bodies keep falling across the restricted zone as Bro fights on. He refuses to yield. He drives his bloodstained sword through another attacker. The wound is fatal, but the 10 demon champions remain undecided. Boor is mortally wounded. Boor accepts that he may die here. He remembers his grandfather Chanyang reaching toward him in anguish. That grief gives Boor the strength to keep fighting. His rage awakens his demonic power before he can collapse. Two masked attackers descend with their blades, forcing Boo into another clash despite his wounds. So dude answers the ambush with a powerful slash and hurls both attackers backward. One is badly wounded. His demonic power keeps him moving. He charges through the others before they regroup. Now Boo cuts down another attacker using an unfamiliar sword art. The survivors panic and order everyone to kill him first. Our boy stays composed as their blades close in. Every remaining attacker now sees him as the greatest threat. Boo answers their order by charging straight through the attackers. He strikes one swordsman down. He keeps moving as the killing continues. And so Boor's Beast Dao terrifies the next attacker. The remaining fighters keep advancing and finish wounded rivals before they recover. One fighter drives in a powerful strike and Boo shouts no. The wounded combatant reels from the blow and starts collapsing. And the injured fighter falls in pain, but nobody stops. A masked attacker keeps advancing, intent on killing him. Then the masked attacker swings for the killing blow, but another blade blocks it. The wounded combatant is shocked, and the execution is stopped. Now the blades pull apart before the close-range assault continues. A clawed hand reaches for the wounded combatant's face as fighters surround him. The attackers keep Bro trapped in the melee, bloodied and badly injured. He struggles through their assault. The head instructor sees that Boor is nearing his limit. So, another fighter falls toward the combat below. A disciple urgently warns the head instructor not to stop the trial early. The head instructor accepts full responsibility for ending the trial. Preserving the surviving candidates matters more than following a rule that will kill them. He judges Boo's reflexes, killing intent, and steady heart. To him, the guy is an uncut gem worthy of becoming a supreme demon saint. Boo is carried away unconscious as a subordinate approaches the head instructor. And the elder warns that 2 candidates remain alive, so ending the trial guarantees punishment. The head instructor doesn't budge. He made this decision deliberately and accepts every consequence. But the head instructor says even the 10 demon gates can't judge Boo better than him. That ends the argument while Bro recovers somewhere else. 4 days later, Boo wakes inside an unfamiliar estate after receiving treatment. Still disoriented, he asks, "Where am I?" and starts checking his surroundings. Then the physician from the demon field stays nearby and quietly watches this guy recover, but still can't read his intentions, so he carefully searches the estate's hallway. Meanwhile, a servant finishes some calligraphy and presents it to everyone nearby, and the servant surveys the sprawling complex, placing Boo near a major settlement. Then Boo considers heading toward the complex's center. His companion asks what he wants, and he answers, noodles. They have their destination. So the request brings back Boo Chanyang feeding our hero noodles when he was little. Back in the present, Boo quietly eats and remembers his grandfather. Meanwhile, Seo Jinha thanks Boo for saving her during the 3rd trial. He says he only killed the enemy before him. Bro explains that the chief instructor stopped the test, leaving 14 survivors. Boo confirms they've been unconscious for 4 days. Seo Jinha reacts as he identifies their physician as the Divine Hand, and he was once the greatest healer under heaven. Now Seo Jinha understands that the Divine Hand treated her wounds. But the attackers were 10 Demon Gates elites. That means the successor system sent them. A bell summons everyone left from the Hell Map. Our boy and Seo Jinha leave the recovery quarters with the other 14 survivors. Attendants receive them at the palace complex and lead them into a formal gathering, and Seo Jinha stays beside Boo as the selection moves forward. And now, the 14 survivors stand before the senior figures, and Young Eungang suddenly calls Boo forward and prepares to offer him something. And Young Eungang asks Bro to succeed him at the Death Command Gate, and Boo checks whether he means him, and everyone reacts to the sudden offer. The survivors follow their guide deeper into the gathering. Hellblood Castle's Vice Lord arrives, carrying a terrifying reputation. He can supposedly kill everything within 30 zhang by flicking in one hand, a generous way to describe a bad temper. Then the Vice Lord chooses Seo Jinha and offers her the Hellblood Castle succession. She freezes because this feared poison master has personally selected her. Seo Jinha remembers defeating 2 opponents and dismissing Hellblood Castle as a poison sect. Still, the offer makes her reconsider what those fights revealed about her. So Seo Jinha recalls being blamed when a scheme failed. She insists the victim attacks her first. Her hesitation-free killing earns approval because that ruthlessness suits Hellblood Castle's poison arts. So the Poison Master says Seo Jinha's talent for poison far surpasses her swordsmanship. Everyone listening starts reconsidering which path would make her stronger. She remembers a blade technique equal to 10 years of training. After weighing that power, Seo Jinha declares, "I'll join the Hellblood Castle." With Seo Jinha's succession settled, her delegation leaves the gathering. Attention turns to Wee Hyukun as he considers his candidate. But Wee Hyukun steps forward and the entire hall falls silent. He's the greatest demonic swordsman and leads the Flame Rain Sword Clan. He singles the guy out and asks, "Boo, was it?" Wee Hyukun waits while Boo hesitates under his attention. Refusing the greatest demonic swordsman carries serious weight, but Boo finally makes his decision. Dude answers, "I won't join the Flame Rain Sword Clan." Wee Hyukun freezes because Boo has rejected the main sect's succession offer outright. And the main sect supporters immediately turn hostile. One demands to know how this guy dares refuse such an offer. The others close around him, ready for violence. Then Boo stands his ground and declares, "I will go to Nangya Pavilion." A masked fighter repeats the declining faction's name with disbelief. To him, Boo's choice directly insults the main sect. A main sect supporter condemns Boo for choosing the declining Nangya Pavilion. Another fighter releases crushing martial pressure, forcing Bro to withstand power far beyond his own. Then Boo fights to stay upright as the pressure bears down. Nearby, someone readies a blade. These fighters aren't questioning him anymore. They're prepared to punish his refusal. The main sect supporters finally attack. Some restrain one person while others rush forward with weapons drawn. Boo's decision has turned the gathering into open violence. Now one furious supporter demands, "How dare you?" and releases enough martial pressure to strike immediately, but still won't yield or abandon Nangya Pavilion. So a supporter raises his sword to strike our hero, but another fighter steps in and stops him. He refuses to let the gathering end in bloodshed. The sword stays raised and everyone waits for the first move. One onlooker watches with amusement and says, "Everyone's getting nervous, aren't they?" The failed attack splits the gathering into opposing sides. Before either side strikes again, the Deputy Pavilion Lord steps between them, and the Deputy Pavilion Lord tries to calm both sides before anyone attacks. He pleads, "For my sake, could you let this one go?" The opposing elder refuses and demands Nangya Pavilion take at least one person. Its representatives prepare to fight back, but realizes they expect him to settle the dispute. The armed escort orders them to take Bro before the fighting resumes. Nangya Pavilion accepts the forced settlement and thanks the escort for letting them leave, but goes with them under reluctant guard. They bring him to Nangya Pavilion, where the errand ghost receives them inside a quiet hall. Gratitude at sword point still counts, somehow. And 3 fighters agree that the earlier intervention prevented something worse. Their warning also makes clear that the dispute isn't settled as Boo leaves. So our boy enters Nangya Pavilion, and its residents watch as his forced admission begins. The pavilion residents respond with shock, amusement, and fear, but sudden admission leaves the whole group unsettled. Then one resident chooses a modest house for Boo and says, "From now on, this will be your quarters." Nearby, the blacksmith keeps forging a blade. Dude begins living among the pavilion's working disciples. So, the instructor leaves Boo at his quarters and orders him to keep training. He warns that staying in Nangya Pavilion has a price. Another resident calls it a minor punishment, but Boo knows they've arranged something. Minor was doing a lot of work there. But the residents seem far too pleased with Boo's forced admission. Their confidence tells him there's a punishment nobody has explained yet. So every recognized disciple represents Nangya Pavilion, so each resident can now teach and test the guy personally. That minor punishment means training against the entire pavilion. Boo finally understands why everyone looked so pleased, and his new teachers plan to push him without mercy. Before he can prepare, they force him into a dangerous trial beside the cliff. Bro survives the sudden drop and quickly recovers, and he moves carefully through the unfamiliar cliffside, searching for whatever Nangya Pavilion prepared next. Then Boo looks beyond a stone wall. Boo finds Blood Vajra waiting near a temple building. Boo can't tell whether the bald monk is another disciple assigned to train him. This guy says he's never practiced internal cultivation. Blood Vajra doubts him and suggests Boo learned an internal art without recognizing it. Bro remembers meeting a monk during childhood, which supports Blood Vajra's suspicion. The monk calls him "this kid" and prepares a powerful internal energy test. And B's internal energy reacts in an impossible way. He grabs the cloaked visitor and demands, "Just who are you?" Blood Vajra recognizes the strange reaction and responds with alarm. Now Blood Vajra examines Boo and forces his internal energy to search. Boo remembers learning to breathe comfortably inside a coffin. Blood Vajra realizes Boo Chanyang's lesson means far more than Bu understood. The coffin lesson finally makes sense when Dude names his teacher, and it was his grandfather Bu Chenyang. Then turns out Bu Chenyang once served as the demonic cult's vice lord. He was their greatest demonic saber master, called the seven-branch demonic saber Bu. Bu can barely believe his grandfather held that position, but bro can't reconcile that history with his grandfather's ties to Shaolin. How does someone linked to an orthodox sect become the demonic cult's vice lord? Bu decides he has to uncover Bu Chenyang's hidden past, and the guy knows he's in immediate danger without protection from the 10 demon successors. The bald man prepares to continue their confrontation, so Bu braces himself because losing that position leaves him exposed. The scarred monk introduces himself as Blood Vajra. He says Bu's internal cultivation is now his concern. Now Blood Vajra asks if bro knows how orthodox and demonic internal arts differ. He begins teaching through force, but soon discovers that mastering the Reversal Heart Sutra brings unbearable pain. Blood Vajra bites the inside of his mouth and commits to the dangerous method. Reversal True Energy will open all 365 of Bu's acupoints at once. He offers one final chance to regret this, but Bu doesn't withdraw. So Blood Vajra activates the technique despite the pain and forces Reversal True Energy into this guy, but concentrates on enduring it as the power gathers inside him. Every acupoint is about to open. The stored Reversal True Energy erupts through Dude. All 365 acupoints open together, sending a shockwave across the training grounds. Now True Energy cuts through Boer as if knives are scraping his bones. He doesn't scream or flinch. Boer stays composed until the surge fades, enduring the Reversal Heart Sutra's brutal first step. And Bu's sweat has no odor, confirming his exceptional constitution. Energy keeps surging through his newly opened acupoints as the Reversal Heart Sutra takes hold, but he calmly guides that power through all 365 acupoints until the breakthrough peaks, and he spends the next 6 months cultivating alone. 6 months into training on the isolated peak, our hero completes the Reversal Heart Sutra's first stage. Despite its brutal demands, he needs only half a year. Then he releases the power from his internal training. The ground shatters around him, the force surges upward and spreads outward. His suppressed physical potential is finally breaking free. The explosive release confirms Bu has reached the Reversal Heart Sutra's first stage. He stays calm while the awakened power settles throughout his body. Then he meditates and circulates the stored ki through his meridians. This unlocks the physical potential his body has suppressed. He succeeds in half a year, though the art normally takes 3 years. But Bu's body transforms faster than it can safely endure. The power strains every muscle and meridian as it spreads through him. His internal organs start taking damage, forcing his instructor to step in and stabilize him. Even with that help, bro keeps worsening. His instructor warns that a fatal internal injury is coming. Boer reaches a critical state, but the stored ki erupts instead of killing him. Through the pain, he regains focus and refuses to retreat from the breakthrough. Now he circulates the violent energy again until it finally stabilizes. Bo pushes through the last resistance. Bo completes the breakthrough. He remains conscious and strong enough to continue training. Blood Vajra admits our boy must master the reverse extreme method or remain trapped in Nangya Pavilion. He promises to remember Bu's help, but Bu refuses the debt. Neither man settles the matter. Now, bro puts everything behind him and keeps moving forward, and his cultivation still has a long way to go. Reaching Great Origin, the 8th layer, requires enlightenment. So Blood Vajra says reaching Great Origin will repay him more than enough. Boer has reached the 2nd layer, so Blood Vajra's current guidance is no longer needed. He sends Boer to Iron Prison Peak for his next training stage. It stands at Nangya Pavilion's far end, and the guy respectfully wishes Blood Vajra safety and peace before leaving. Blood Vajra returns the farewell, and the two part ways, so heads toward his next challenge. Months later, word arrives that the Azure Dragon sect has been wiped out. An inn-patron hears movement outside and looks up. Masked operatives are crossing the rooftops, confirming the attackers are still active. And meanwhile, the masked operatives keep moving through the night. One stops on a rooftop and waits. A nearby weapon mark shows someone has already struck there. A masked pavilion member confronts the long-haired man over his absurd remarks. Nangya Pavilion's rules are already dividing their own members, and his words deepen that rift. So another pavilion member accuses the blonde man of bringing a candidate for the Fire Rain side. The blonde man opposed the 10 Demon Successors project, making that choice contradictory. He only laughs and accepts the accusation. Consistency was never his strong suit. Then the argument shifts to Dude when a sect disciple demands their new recruit's location. Everyone's suspicion settles on Bu before he even arrives. Their confrontation breaks into a fight over the water. The movement arts master draws a blade and attacks. He introduces himself as Go Wool, once called the Great Thief, swift beyond shadow. Go Wool explains that swift beyond shadow blends movement with martial skill. Its constant changes crippled every earlier disciple. He challenges Bu to keep up, then demonstrates the technique across the water. But Go Wool wants this guy to sharpen the technique through real combat, and Bu enters the waterfall training ground and prepares for the practical test. Bro drives through the waterfall and uses swift beyond shadow under dangerous conditions. His progress has already carried him beyond the basic instruction. Two observers admit this technique normally takes much longer to master. Bu's supernormal neural core has opened faster than expected. They wonder whether the pavilion master after will finally appear. So meanwhile, a Nangya Pavilion official complains about being stuck with menial work. He suspects the project is creating killers who can slay great righteous faction masters. Even world-ending schemes need someone on chores. Then the officials discuss the candidates as pieces in a larger political contest, and one accuses his superior of knowing major factions sent their chosen heirs. That puts Boo's training under greater pressure. A prominent tournament participant has been killed. The officials confirm it. The other competitors grow alarmed, making Boo's involvement even more dangerous. And another participant receives an even harsher judgment. The authorities threaten to ban him from ever using a sword again. He falls into the water, knowing defeat can end his entire martial path. The punished participant plunges into the water, ending their confrontation, and Boo reports to a pavilion official afterward. She orders him to call her Chief Baek, and he formally greets her. Now Chief Baek asks why Boo is reporting information she already knows. His answer doesn't clear her distrust. Our hero holds his ground while the pavilion members remain wary of him. Then the pavilion authorities confirm Boo follows water ripples using a divine movement art, and his control catches them off guard. Despite their doubts, one authority suggests trusting him this once. Bro faces them directly, and the discussion grows tense. As Nangya Pavilion's disciple, his choices affect the entire pavilion. Trusting him means they must accept responsibility for the outcome. The authorities know a clash can't be avoided, so they accept the demand now. That will prevent any further accusations. However, if Boo passes, the opposing sects must end the dispute completely. And the White Horse sect and Hwawu Sword sect must drop every claim first. Only then can Boo take the trial as Nangya Pavilion's disciple. He accepts and prepares to prove himself. Our boy visits the Myriad Knowledge Hall before the examination because he needs information. It's known as the brain of the demonic hall. The huge collection of records explains why. A hall attendant formally announces the arrival of Nangya Pavilion's deputy young hero. Boo is admitted to meet the official overseeing the records. His investigation can finally begin. So Dude introduces himself to the records official as Nangya Pavilion's disciple. The official explains that 10 demonic sects combine their strength to form the demonic hall. So the demonic hall and its member sects aren't one united force. Some demonic sects openly oppose the alliance, but grasps that divide and suddenly stands, reconsidering the coming examination. That divided loyalty leads into a tense argument, and a scarred official blames an unidentified party while Boo listens carefully. The official presents a token confirming the rank involved, and the token marks the lowest of 3 ranks. But this trial still has serious consequences, and as the terms are explained, the opposing representative remains certain the guy will fail. Boo presents the command token, formally starting the examination, and he leaves to carry out his part of the order. But a red-clad man calls after the black-robed woman, forcing her to turn. He warns that the rivers and lakes are a harsh place. Violence is coming to the city. Then signs of another demonic clash soon appear, placing the examination under the shadow of wider violence. Meanwhile, Bro reaches a hidden hall deep in the remote mountains, and he passes through the ancient doors and prepares for the examination inside. Shadowy attackers surround Boo as he moves through the hall. He draws his blade, he charges through them while a hooded man watches. Then Boo searches the hall's records for one specific item. He checks each result and says, not this either. Something important is hidden here. The demonic archive keeps no index, naturally. Turns out this guy finds a privileged manual titled Nangya First Turn. Certain it contains what he needs, he studies the technique before the examination. The examination day arrives, and Boo's test takes place at the Grand Marshal Demon Arena. He must prove his qualifications there. So Boo enters the Grand Marshal Demon Arena armed and prepared. Passing will prove Nangya Pavilion's disciple is qualified and settle both sects' claims. Now Bro stands alone before the 4 judging elders and formally greets them, and the presiding elder studies him sternly before beginning the examination. The judges explain that the White Horse sect and Hwawu Sword sect requested this examination. They want Boo's qualifications for the 10 demonic champions tested. If he passes, both sects will drop their claims against Nangya Pavilion over the earlier dispute. And with those terms confirmed, the examiner faces Boo inside the Grand Marshal Demon Arena. He expects Boo to use a technique with only 5 forms. Our hero attacks first. The unexpected force immediately drives the examiner onto defense. The examiner gives Boo one simple condition. He only has to block the incoming attack. But the masked authority orders the challengers to take Boo's head. The White Horse sect intends to kill him despite their agreement, and the swordsman reacts to that lethal order before another examiner attacks Dude. The technique is called White Demon Heartsteel. After seeing Boo respond, he judges Boo's fundamentals as merely decent. He has already underestimated him. Then the White Demon Heartsteel closes in, but Boo recognizes how it works. He sees through the technique before it can overwhelm him. That lethal advantage starts falling apart. Our boy pushes through the clashing attacks and turns the exchange around. He calmly uses second form White Demon Descent. Boo has identified the feint and chosen the correct counter. The fighter in white warns Bro Bro that the real test begins now. He follows with another lethal technique. Boo meets the opening strikes directly, but the attack breaks through and covers the battlefield. So Boo realizes the falling strikes can surround him and immediately moves aside. He keeps his sword ready while the fighter in white controls the technique. The guy must survive the barrage before countering. Several surrounding strikes break through Boo's defense and wound him. He braces himself as the next attack approaches. Before Boo can recover, another strike slams into him and draws blood. The non-stop barrage leaves him in severe pain. Even so, he stays alert as more attacks continue. So Bro fears the Beast Blade will kill him. He searches its manual for a way to survive. He can't rely on the technique's strength alone. But the back pages finally reveal the Beast Blade's hidden weaknesses. The manual calls using it the act of a beast and warns that the user may lose their humanity. Now Boo commits to the secret killing technique despite knowing the risk. Even rare White Horse sect experts struggle to evade it. Boo attacks without warning, and this guy follows through without hesitation and lets the Beast Blade's violent instincts guide his next strike. It keeps him alive, but he starts enjoying the violence. The manual's warning is already coming true. Boo's Beast Blade crashes into the swordsman's sweeping counter. The force stops Boo cold, and he can't believe his killing technique failed to end the fight. Then the swordsman drives another heavy strike through Boo's defense and knocks him backward. Dude tries to hold his ground, but his cries show he's nearing his limit. Then Boo strains against the swordsman's crushing force, and the pain only sharpens his focus. He endures the clash until he finds the will to turn it around. The exchange leaves one fighter incapacitated beside a broken sword, but another swordsman is still standing. He attacks. Boo counters as his demonic power and bloodlust surge again. The battlefield is wrecked, but our hero still refuses to fall. His sword is broken and his right arm is ruined. His resolve holds. His opponent starts wondering what Boo even is as they enter the final exchange. Now the fighting ends, and two surviving observers withdraw from the battlefield. They grimly confirm the challengers are finished. Bro has survived the lethal test despite his catastrophic injuries. The opposing representatives demand that the agreement be honored because Boo survived. When an official refuses, they threaten to end their sex pact with the Demon Division. The challengers insist every strike had a purpose, but the result is clear. Buzz derivative Flower Rain's sword art overwhelms the White Horse sect's ultimate technique. Their accusations of shame now turn back on them. So the representatives force the official to honor the agreement. He formally restores Bar of Nangya Pavilion as a 10-demon disciple. Noong Ungang praises our boy for surviving without disgracing Nangya Pavilion, and Bor stands there bloodied, having restored his rank and Nangya Pavilion's honor. He keeps himself under control despite everything. Neong Ungang tells him, "Good, now that everything is settled." Neong Ungang embraces Bro with relief because Nangya Pavilion's honor is secure. Afterward, Boo sees a vision splitting his human self from his demonic double. The bloodshed has shaken his identity, and Boo gathers his focus. Boo channels his power, but both versions remain bound together. He still can't tell whether he controls his demonic side or is becoming it. The Elder explains that Boo's Dantian now contains completely pure true ki. It awakens acupoints that had stayed dormant, confirming a major internal energy breakthrough. So the guy has reached antipolar firelight, the antipolar heart method's third layer. Extreme heat and cold can no longer affect him, while the Elder reacts emotionally to his progress. Then the breakthrough still doesn't resolve Boo's inner conflict. His demonic side pushes forward through visions of bloodshed. Dude must face the violence bound to his growing power. Now B imagines himself inside the domain of a colossal serpent. He wonders why he's entered the home of something so powerful. The vision shifts to an Elder waiting at a vast estate, and Boo follows the garden path toward a distant tower to find what awaits him. This guy keeps walking toward the distant pavilion, alert as he approaches the Elder waiting to receive him. But the Elder congratulates Boo for passing the Flame Rain Sword and White Demon Spirit Serpent tests. His blackened fingers suggest the formal welcome hides an injury or corruption. Bro introduces himself as a Nangya Pavilion disciple and greets the Elder Council head. The Elder examines him and confirms his internal energy foundation remains solid despite the changes inside his body. The Elder Council head says Boo recognizes the circulation technique only after starting it, and he orders Boo to report to the main hall after finishing his Nangya Pavilion training. So the Elder tests Boo's resolve and warns that complacency will block his mastery of Nangya Pavilion's martial arts. Mocking laughter breaks out around them, and the gathering turns hostile. Then our hero braces against the force of the clash. The exchange draws blood. Once it ends, the Elder resumes meditating while Boo considers how seriously he must train. Bro answers the guest dismissal order with a restrained farewell and leaves. A watching brown-robed woman has never seen anyone reject the Elder's offer so quickly, but chooses his own path. And Boo Chunyang once watched calmly, wanting to see which path his grandson would choose. Now Boo worries about where that choice choice may lead. Still shaken by the refusal, Boo realizes he nearly died. The earlier test seemed unbearable. This unknown power feels far greater. He staggers under that realization. Now the concerned elder asks whether Boo feels unwell, but he hides his distress. He says he's fine and continues through the sect grounds. The vision leaves him fearing the violence ahead. Then Boo knows he's gone too far into the violent life he never wanted. Still, he stays alert and won't abandon his chosen path. Dude visits a blacksmith and chooses a sword for the battles ahead. He leaves with the weapon at his side, carrying everything he's already done. Now armed, Boo enters the reed field and senses danger nearby. He cuts through the reeds. He prepares to defend himself, and masked swordsmen block Boo's path, surrounding him from every direction. Their leader says Boo must pass the 10 demonic halls before becoming a demon. The guy blocks their opening attack, but offers them a chance to leave. He warns, "I don't know you, but I have no desire to kill you all." They ignore Boo's warning and attack again, forcing him to strike back. The swordsmen form up and rush from several directions, but Boo prepares to break through. So Bro drives one masked swordsman back and breaks their formation. He surges through the others, meeting their blades mid-air as their coordinated assault fails. So another masked swordsman attacks, but Boo reads the strike through the beast path. He spots the gaps in their formation and overpowers the attacker from above. The masked swordsmen recognize the gap in power, yet they won't retreat. They regroup and attack Boo from both sides, relying on coordination to contain him. And this guy scatters several attackers with another forceful counterattack, determined to break their resistance. Before he finishes, one swordsman lands a sudden claw-like strike and draws blood. The claw tears into Boo, but he keeps fighting. The masked swordsman realized the demonic hall's information was wrong. Bro has learned a remarkable sword art, but Boo's power surges as he says he learned to fight to survive. His attackers finally understand their mistake. They thought Boo was helpless, but he's far stronger than them. Then Boo raises his bloodied blade. Boo charges back into the fight. He cuts down another masked swordsman, but the others still refuse to retreat. They'd rather die fighting than turn their backs. Our hero asks whether their honor matters more than staying alive. They won't listen. One masked swordsman gathers his strength. Boo prepares for another attack. The masked fighter says honor doesn't exist and unleashes the almighty lightning unrivaled stance. The attack swallows Dude in its full force. Still, it can't bring him down. Then the clash ends. The masked fighter sees Boo still standing. Boo has already countered the attack. He kills the final opponent. He stands alone with his bloodied sword. Our boy finishes the last masked swordsman, who vows, "Even as a ghost, I will curse you." With every attacker dead, Boo leaves behind their bodies and abandoned weapons. Escaping Hell Island hasn't freed Bro from bloodshed, and the endless killing horrifies him. Nearby, the scarred chin curtain watches with quiet satisfaction. This violence serves some purpose Boo doesn't understand yet. So Boo watches the cart pass, still shaken, and continues onward. Nearby, a subordinate addresses a robed man as "my lord." The robed man notices the call before leaving the building. Now a dead bird and discarded blade lie near the water. A hidden attacker grips a weapon nearby. Before anything happens, a top-knot man grabs Boo's arm and asks whether there's trouble. The hidden attacker strikes the top-knot man from behind and wounds him mid-question. The guy reacts at once, but he can't identify the attacker or their motive. And now, 3 Nangya Pavilion authorities meet over tea, and they discuss the growing danger and consider how the pavilion should respond. The blonde man laughs and says the aging blood demon remains powerful. A dark-robed authority accepts that much, but questions his conclusion. Their discussion shifts to proof of the blood demon's recent strength, and the blonde man insists the blood demon's recent achievements are exceptional. The pale streak listens carefully as everyone considers what those feats mean for Nangya Pavilion. Then the pale streak identifies the Martial Alliance as their enemy. Another authority suspects a vanguard unit from the Alliance's Grand Strategy Hall. That means someone organized the recent attacks. Meanwhile, Boo has already killed numerous Nangya Pavilion disciples who were judged underqualified. Those deaths leave the pavilion weakened and its authorities deeply alarmed. The white-streaked man argues that seeing real ability should settle their doubts, and he formally urges the dark-haired authority to act while Bro listens carefully. So the dark-haired authority accepts because several people strongly support the request. He'll personally deliver it to the intended recipient, satisfying the pale streak. Meanwhile, the request reaches Mansung Inn, and the woman assigned to assess Boo refuses to supervise an untested young man. But the messenger presents the deputy pavilion lord's wolf insignia, proving it's a direct order. She vows to test and reject Boo herself. A warning that this guy isn't ordinary only makes her angrier. So the evaluator makes her choice. She'll test Boo herself and reject him if he fails. Boo's place in Nangya Pavilion now depends on passing her trial. But Dude must first enter Wind and Thunder Gorge, an isolated fortress tied to the apostate faith. The sect traffics people, both orthodox and unorthodox groups avoid its territory. Remote terrain keeps outside forces away from wind and thunder gorge. Buzz group reaches the cliffside entrance, but a companion warns that fierce winds block their path, and surveillance posts cover the gorge so the group can't reveal itself while entering. One fighter calls Boo an inexperienced greenhorn and resents bringing him. Boo prepares to cross anyway. The greenhorn intends to outlive the complaint. So our hero slips past the crossed blades and moves deeper into the fortress. He passes a guarded punishment area. He reaches a rope bridge over the chasm. Then Boo races across the bridge. Boo finds a marked wooden tablet. Claw-shaped slashes have ruined its message, so Bro releases a huge burst of power. He forces through the obstacle ahead. Then Boo watches a companion cross using heavenly ladder to the firmament, striking foot against mid-air footholds to leap across the gorge. But Boo decides movement alone can't break through the gorge's defenses. He unleashes a huge sword strike, tearing through the mountain terrain and clearing the obstacle. Baw's mountain-cleaving strike slams into the gorge, but another obstacle waits beyond the shattered defenses. He immediately gathers power for a second attack. So now our boy drives concentrated blades of power into the ground. The force launches him across the rocky cliffside toward the distant compound. He advances before the defenders can recover. Boo lands on the compound roof, but another defense blocks his way. He braces his weapon. He strikes the barrier head-on. The blow breaks through and sends a strong shockwave across the roof, but the mechanism reacts again, so Bro reaches out and warns the mechanism, and the breach leaves the compound's defenders stunned, while one scarred defender turns furious. The mechanism's violent reaction disrupts everyone nearby, and a black-robed group advances through an icy cavern toward their next ordeal, and one candidate gives thanks, but a man teases a woman for barely praising them. She tells him to stop making pointless remarks. One candidate privately thinks their earlier performance was nothing worth praising. They barely passed. Their guide leads everyone through the rain, while Boo remains unsure. Soon, the guide announces they've reached the next trial site. Then now the candidates gather before an icy barrier, and approaching it starts the ordeal. Pain suddenly hits one candidate as ice bursts from the nearby water, and the next test is already underway. Boo dives toward the swordsman while ice erupts all around them. The cavern's power freezes one candidate solid, and the surrounding ice begins shattering. The guy keeps pushing because stopping will leave him frozen too. So Boo sinks deeper through the water and finds enormous ice crystals below. The cavern's freezing power reaches far beneath the surface. So power surges around the crystals, alarming one swordsman. The other candidates begin suffering in the freezing water. Dude watches them struggle and realizes the trial affects him differently, but tests himself without circulating any internal energy. Nothing. He can't feel the cold at all. The elemental ordeal changed his body, granting him immunity to fire and water. So the breakthrough overwhelms Boo, and he passes out beneath the cavern water, and his need for air finally wakes him. This guy breaks the surface gasping, alive after surviving the elemental ordeal. But elsewhere in the cavern, a defeated candidate weeps while a hooded overseer walks past kneeling swordsmen. They've set down their weapons and surrendered. Everyone waits in silence as the trial enters a deadlier stage. A sudden blast erupts among the gathered candidates. Boo and the others recoil as the surrender breaks apart and open fighting begins. So one swordsman attacks two larger opponents before they can move. He severs their limbs, then drives his blade through another candidate. Anyone who hesitates dies, and the wounded candidate falls dead, but nobody stops fighting. Another robed fighter pushes through the crowd while a huge bald fighter charges the tattooed swordswoman. Then a braided hair fighter intercepts him with a bloody sword strike. The fighter keeps moving and cuts through several more opponents as the candidates slaughter each other. The woman treats the melee as live training and joins the innovation squad. She wants to study supreme combat arts and become stronger. While the braided hair fighter keeps attacking, Bro studies every technique used around him. Then now, Boo sees a chance to test everything he's learned. A masked fighter wounds a large opponent. Another martial artist launches a flying kick at Boo. Watching time is over, so our hero counters the flying kick and cuts down the masked attacker. Nearby, other masked fighters brutally impale a captive man. Boo watches without flinching. Boo prepares for whoever attacks next. Now the tattooed swordswoman commits to the fight and draws her sword. She immediately attacks while the killing continues throughout the cavern. So Bro commits to the cavern fight, but the swordsman counters his opening attack and wounds him, who immediately realizes how wide the skill gap is. Ning Ungang explains that advanced swordplay doesn't rely on fixed forms or patterns. The swordsman proves it by taking on two attackers at once. One precise counter drops the muscular fighter. The swordswoman ends her exchange and turns toward the next attacker. Through all the fighting, she catches Boo studying her technique. Suspicious, she asks why he's watching and what he's thinking. And our boy uses what he's learned when two attackers surround him. He counters their coordinated assault. He stays calm as another fighter charges, but cuts the advancing fighter badly enough to stop him. The captain studies what Dude just performed and decides he can't develop it much further. She resumes the trial by launching concealed darts. A hooded overseer realizes Boo copied the captain's technique and approaches him. Now the fighter called the Asura's Blade prepares for another confrontation. Several swordsmen immediately join the clash. One rushes through the fighting and strikes an opponent, leaving another combatant bleeding. And the black-clad fighter cuts into the bald fighter with his blade. Around them, single strikes rip through the forest. Bo realizes how dangerous the remaining combatants are. So the guy answers with a forceful strike and survives using the Nangya first battle manual. Another attacker throws a punch, but Boo blocks it. An armed fighter closes in behind him. The swordswoman drives her blade through the muscular bald fighter's throat. The concentrated force destroys him completely. She stays composed because the battle around her still isn't over. Then meanwhile, another fighter gathers true chi at the sword's tip. He plans to release it on contact, focusing the destructive force into one point. The swordsman's focused true chi explodes on contact and sends Bro flying across the battlefield. The swordswoman sees the blood left behind. Nearby, a demonic warrior watches the violence with complete confidence. But the swordswoman realizes the demonic warrior has finally shown himself. She charges him. Before he can take advantage, another attacker catches him across the face. The fight closes to striking distance. So a descending energy attack forces Boer to meet it head-on. Its power breaks through his defense and throws him across the battlefield. Boer recovers before the next strike lands. He answers with a swirling sword slash that tears through the area. The counterattack catches a nearby warrior off guard. Farther away, a scarred fighter approaches the hooded swordsman watching from the ridge. He says, "You've been observing us throughout this entire battle." With the observer exposed, a tattooed fighter rushes this guy. Another pair of weapons collide before he reaches him. The impact sends a powerful shockwave across the battlefield and interrupts the attack. Then a larger fighter catches Boo before he can recover from the blast. He drives Bro into a violent collision at close range. Boo's condition is left unclear. The collision leaves several fighters battered or unconscious, but the trial continues. Another swordsman charges through everyone still standing. The scarred woman studies the aftermath and allows the purge to continue. Now the black-clad swordsmen receive a direct order: clean up the remaining small fry. Surrounded by bodies, Boo realizes they're about to execute the surviving candidates. Their attacks carve deep sword marks across the mountain, and Boo survives the purge and leaves the scarred mountain behind. He reviews how recklessly he's pushed his growth. Since he skipped the formal standards, he decides to organize the cultivation stages beyond his improved mind method. Now our hero meets a bald monk after a long separation and greets him. The monk respectfully credits Boo's guidance for his recent progress. Their reunion turns toward how far the monk has advanced. Now the monk breaks his tense silence with a broad grin, and Boo realizes his prediction was way off. His internal force surges far beyond expectations, forcing him to reassess his conditions. Then the surge strains Boo's body and confirms that his earlier sensation was real. He's reached the peak stage. Beyond first rate, both the body and inner force approach their limits. Now Dude considers what lies beyond the peak stage, and the highest known cultivation realm is the heavenly will stage. And reaching it means understanding heaven's will and joining with ancient existence. By the 7th level, a cultivator breaks free from physical constraints. So at the 8th level, a cultivator commands nature and influences creation and destruction. Bo isn't chasing that distant realm yet. He'll leave the demonic hall and search Murim for clues about Bu Chenyang's assassin. Our boy needs intelligence before entering Murim, so an advisor sends him to Master Cheel. Bo thanks the advisor. Before they part, the advisor warns him about Murim's dangers and urges caution. After saying farewell, Bro begins his journey through the wider Murim. A sudden fire erupts nearby, showing how quickly trouble can derail his search. Murim never lets a man travel in peace. So Bo studies an intelligence manual profiling renowned martial masters. It helps him identify dangerous figures while investigating Bo Chenyang's killer beyond the demonic hall. The manual also covers the demonic successors, yet its intelligence can't confirm one important subject's true identity. The guy still has no reliable lead. Boer continues studying the recorded techniques. One sword strike drives upward through precise control of bone and muscle. The records also cover hidden weapons and poisons. He can't limit this investigation to conventional martial arts, and that gap pushes Bro to investigate beyond the demonic hall, including members of the righteous path. Searching both sides makes Bu Chenyang's killer much harder to find. But during a tense meeting, the bandaged man tells Bu, "I have a proposal for you." Back at the palace, this guy weighs the offer carefully. His answer could bring stronger opponents and better intelligence. Bu says the innovation squad gave him useful experience, but not enough real combat. Without that pressure, he can't complete his martial arts quickly. He starts considering the 9 Killers unit, which alarms everyone listening. Then the bandaged man makes it plain. Join the 9 Killers unit, dude. The unit carries out missions the demonic hall won't publicly acknowledge. Accepting would make Boer one of its covert operatives. Its missions include assassination, kidnapping, destruction, and theft for the demonic hall. In return, its intelligence could reveal leads about Bu Chenyang's killer. An elder objects immediately because he knows the unit's dangers. Then our hero considers the full cost. He must erase his identity and become disposable. The unit recruits criminals seeking redemption and desperate people chasing large rewards. It binds them to violent missions the demonic hall denies. So the elder spells out the warning. Demonic successors become weapons against masters of the righteous path. They're expected to kill without hesitation, and he angrily refuses that future for Boer. Bro still needs the unit's intelligence network to investigate Bu Chenyang's murder. He accepts the danger, but sets one firm condition. He'll serve for only 1 year. Bu's natural appearance would draw attention and expose him. Before starting the 1-year assignment, he uses a face-changing disguise. Now Bu travels anonymously through a coastal town and checks his surroundings, and he reaches the old bookstore serving as his covert destination. Looking it over, he says, "So this is the place." Our boy enters the old bookstore and follows the lantern-lit corridor between crowded shelves, and he searches for the contact handling his 1-year assignment. The place seems completely ordinary, which makes him doubt it's a 9 Killers unit branch. He keeps investigating instead of trusting the address, and the bookstore keeper asks whether he wants a particular book. Boer chooses the Spring and Autumn Annals, expecting it to unlock contact with the 9 Killers unit, and an urgent messenger interrupts before their exchange can continue. Everyone's reaction confirms the books and visitors are part of the covert network. Bro opens an intelligence record, and the mood inside the bookstore changes, and it describes a warrior standing across a devastated battlefield. These aren't ordinary booksellers. Then the record names Suk-jung as his target. He's a Bloodsound Evil Sect expert renowned across Marim for over a decade. His blood whip and past killings make this a dangerous first assignment. His interest worries the bookstore contact, but Boer has found exactly what he needs, and the network offers a route to Suk-jung and real combat experience. So the intelligence confirms Suk-jung is dangerous, but still within reach. The branch contacts prepare clothes and supplies that will conceal Bu's identity. So the branch contact orders the prepared supplies brought over. Ba takes everything. Ba leaves for the covert assignment. A fallen swordsman shows the danger, but only results can secure his place. News soon returns to the branch. The guy has eliminated Suk-jung, leaving the contact stunned. His first assignment is validated, while the Bloodsound Evil Sect prepares to recover its dead master. The trail leads to Bloodsound Island, a secluded stronghold beyond the coast. The Bloodsound Evil Sect controls it as a Blood Sect offshoot, but supply ships are the island's only link to shore. Who joins workers loading a merchant vessel and uses the voyage as cover, and his first covert mission has him nervous, but he commits. Dude loads cargo beside the dock workers while quietly checking everyone nearby, and one wrong move could expose him before he reaches the island. A dockside attacker suddenly strikes and sends the operation into disorder. A rope or whip catches Bu and yanks him backward. His mission could end before departure, and the attacker scatters the workers and leaves before anyone can respond. People treat the injured while Bu keeps his infiltration hidden in the confusion. Then this guy repairs his cover once the immediate danger passes. The workers praise his skill, unaware that the attack nearly exposed him. He decides to move more carefully. Boer uses the face change tendon shift technique learned from the vice leader. His disguise holds. He commits to killing Seok-cheng tonight, despite the risk. Then, after nightfall, Bro reaches Bloodsound Island aboard the merchant ship. Heavy rain hides his approach as he begins entering Seok-cheng's territory. Bu enters the Bloodsound Evil Sect compound with his blade ready. The grounds are fortified. He studies the defenses before moving deeper. Now masked guards hold the gate, leaving Bu little room to sneak through. He rushes them. He closes the distance before they can expose him. So our hero faces a masked guard and spots Seok-in nearby. He's found his target inside the Bloodsound Evil Sect compound. Now Bu senses Seok-cheng's immense internal energy across the courtyard. Still, the exposed target could be bait. He crosses the rooftops carefully. He follows Seok-cheng into a large pillared hall. Bro stays calm while scouting the hall, and he moves deeper through the compound and approaches a guarded chamber without revealing himself. And Bu hides behind a large jar inside the chamber. He sees a perfect opening and commits to one decisive strike. Bad call. Hidden blades fire at him, revealing the opening was a trap. The blades close around Bu and lock him inside a cage. He doesn't panic. Instead, he stays composed and prepares to face whoever set the trap. Meanwhile, a braided-haired swordsman admits he expected an ambush at this familiar spot. Our boy says his timing is perfect. Another victim falls as the swordsman raises his blade to finish the attack. And with another victim down, the fight moves into the weapon storeroom. The defender mocks his cornered opponent. He reveals coin-triggered traps throughout the room, all meant to keep the mission confidential. So two fighters stay hidden inside a large jar, waiting to spring the ambush. The defender provokes the masked opponent into attacking. He promises the trapped fighter will suffer against his serrated weapons. Bu answers the taunt. Bu draws his serrated sword. He meets the first attack head-on, and their blades collide. The defender studies Bu's swordplay, stays confident, and unleashes the Black Serpent saber arts. Then Dude survives the faster exchange and follows the defender's next approach. He drops his stance, he waits. There, Bu drives a powerful upward slash straight through the incoming attack. Boer expects a calm parry to end the exchange. Instead, the enemy strike grazes him and draws blood. The easy victory is gone. But the enemy charges with twin blades and wounds the guy again. Boer gives ground. Boer studies him. The enemy isn't trying trying to kill him yet, which means another trap is coming. So bro dodges the next strike and counters through the rapid exchange. The hooded opponent still knocks him airborne, leaving him open for another attack. So Boor turns his fall into a slash aimed at the opponent's throat. He draws blood, but a bladed gauntlet catches his sword. The opponent laughs, and Boor retreats to reassess. Now this guy recognizes the opening as another feint and steadies himself. He tracks the next attack, but the opponent says he's too late. The concealed follow-up comes immediately. Then closing his eyes fails to protect Boo from the attack. He braces against the descending strike. He survives the clash. Both fighters fall silent, waiting for the next move. Meanwhile, more masked attackers enter the armory and surround Brewer. They lunge together, but he slips away, but parries the barrage coming from several directions. One attacker demands to know how Boo noticed the feint. That confirms our hero has read their deception. He presses forward through another fast exchange, forcing the attacker back. And Boor uses Shadowless extreme speed and closes the distance instantly. The robed swordsman can't respond before Dude lands a powerful strike. Now another attacker lunges with a spear-like weapon and cries, "This is impossible," but withstands the clash and drives his serrated sword forward. His counter sends the attacker flying. Boo follows at once. Boo reaches the alarmed target before he recovers. He drives his blade through the man's chest. The target dies from the wound. Our boy stays calm. With the assassination complete, he leaves the armory behind. News reaches a local tea house where a messenger reports Sukjung's death. A resting martial artist is stunned. Sukjung has been a renowned expert for over a decade, and Boor returns to the closed bookshop, where the shopkeeper recognizes his repeat visitor. Boo's sudden arrival puts the shopkeeper on edge, so the men handling the contract can barely believe Sukjung is dead. They confirm the assassination and issue a voucher worth exactly 3,000 young. Even the gray-haired clerk is stunned. Murder itemized and paid on delivery. With the contract settled, Bro walks through town and heads back toward the bookstore, and the shopkeeper is already uneasy about his unexpected return. The Akyang branch welcomes number 18 as its pillar, and one branch member tells Boo that the higher authorities have sent a new mission. And so, Bo refuses the added responsibility and turns to leave, and his comrades grab his robe, forcing him to stay and hear them out. His comrades say their shared livelihood also means sharing responsibility without a fixed term, and the guy accepts the protection assignment, but only this once. The branch starts preparing him. Boo learns that the person under his protection is no ordinary figure, and her party gathers outside a large building. Inside, those overseeing the assignment discuss the important protection mission. Now, Bro starts the protection mission under his harmless cover, and he escorts the veiled Dan Sook into an expensive tavern and watches for trouble. But Dan Sook enjoys the lavish meal and treats the outing casually. Her older guard senses danger and reacts, so Boo stays focused on protecting her. She treats her bodyguards like an optional garnish. Dan Sook suddenly calls to Boor, catching him off guard. She asks about his hidden identity. This guy explains that 9 Killers members have no personal names. Number 18 is only his designations. So now Dan Sook asks whether that anonymity explains Boo's false face. Her question cuts straight through his harmless cover. With a sword nearby, Boo can't dismiss what she's noticed. Dan Sook touches Boo's false face and confirms her suspicion. Dude realizes she notices details that most people miss, and she casually suggests a boat ride after lunch, and the group tentatively agrees. Then masked servers bring the next dishes, but they're assassins in disguise. They've already surrounded the table and moved beside the diners. Boor has to defend Dan Sook at close range, and the assassins reach toward the diners, but the older defender catches one first. Ba draws his sword immediately, because the ambush has already become a close-range fight. Our hero strikes first and exposes the infiltrators before they can finish attacking. One assassin warns the others they've been noticed. The defenders react immediately and drive back the armed attackers around the table, who attacks the older defender from above. But the man holds firm. He's much stronger than Bro expected. Even so, he tells his allies to continue, because only 3 attackers remain. Now, the older defender counters with a powerful palm strike. Another defender follows with a clawing attack to end the fight quickly. Their combined impact tears through the area around Boor. The combined strike scatters the infiltrators and sends several fighters flying. One fallen attacker keeps laughing and remains dangerous, so Boo blocks the next blade. Boo orders Dan Sook to stay within 3 steps. She obeys, shaken, while our boy turns toward the next attacker. So Boo keeps Dan Sook in safe, but a robed enemy crushes every attacker facing him. He calls them pests. He drops another fighter with 1 strike, and Dan Sook confirms Bro protected her, but she still questions why he stepped in. Nearby, a servant lies dead from needles, proving the attackers breached their defenses. Jingak examines the bodies inside the hall and realizes the manor isn't safe. Returning would invite another attack, so he firmly says, "We shouldn't go back to the manor." And so, a dark-robed woman urges the elder to disguise himself before finding new lodgings. He refuses. Expecting an ambush, she tells her companions to enter behind her. Her warning proves right when they reach the new lodgings that night. Near the courtyard cart, a masked attacker jumps the white-haired defender. Another companion retreats. So the masked attacker drives forward with his blade. Their clash launches the white-haired defender backward. The attackers have already found their refuge and strike again. Then dark-clad attackers flood the courtyard. The defenders meet them head-on. They block the assault. They cut down several fighters before anyone breaks through. More attackers push through the rain despite those losses. An elderly defender demands answers as a black-robed swordsman approaches the iron veil with his blade raised. The iron veil braces as the attackers break through. A defender takes a hit and crashes beside a masked assassin. Before he can recover, the assassin drives in his blade and shouts, "Die." But the older defender notices too late. Another woman watches the final slash land. The blade strikes beside the fallen defender's outstretched hand. Nobody knows whether he survives. The attackers press forward before anyone can check the fallen defender. One masked assassin strikes an exhausted defender from behind, forcing him to block. A rogue defender blasts several enemies away and slows their advance. A wide slash cuts through the fight and severs a defender's hand. The defenders have already killed dozens, but another wave closes in. The wounded fighter gets no chance to recover. So the white-haired swordsman sees another large wave approaching. Dan So-ok's great uncle orders a defender to take her somewhere safe. He'll hold them back, so he begs the defender to leave quickly. Then Dan So-ok refuses to leave her great uncle, delaying their escape. An attacker closes in while she protests, but calmly asks her pardon. Boor prepares to remove her himself. Boo ends the argument by carrying Dan So-ok away through the rain. A scarred defender remains behind to stop the attackers and protect their escape. And the defender swings hard and blasts the pursuing attackers aside. He orders the guy to keep moving while the remaining fighters block another rush. His strike breaks through the attacker's barrier and damages the nearby structure. That gives Boo enough time to continue escaping with Dan So-ok. Now more masked attackers intercept Dude in the rain. He breaks through their coordinated assault. He carries Dan So-ok beyond immediate danger. The battle continues behind them. Then Boo reaches a bookstore, but a thrown blade cuts off the clerk's greeting. He dodges it. He moves deeper inside because Dan So-ok still needs shelter. Now Boo's sudden entrance startles a young woman and both clerks. He quickly asks them for access to the secret storage room behind the shop. Boor leads Dan So-ok through the bookstore's hidden passage while the assassins pursue them. He takes her into the fortified storage area for protection, and this guy finds Nyung Onggang waiting inside with the remaining defenders. They're gathered in a stone hall lined with weapons, ready for another attack. The exhausted defenders know they can't survive another wave inside the refuge. Two brothers accept the order to attack first and rush out armed. They plan to kill every assassin approaching. Meanwhile, another defender joins the counterattack, but Boo keeps Dan So-ok behind. He orders her to stay inside and keep the door closed. She must wait until he returns. So before Bro can leave, Dan So-ok quietly stops him. She still wants to know who he is and why he's protecting her. So Boo hesitates and begins explaining, but Dan So-ok pulls him closer and she chooses to answer first and reveals her real name. The name tells Boo that she's Dan So-ok, the demonic hall master's treasured daughter. She's also the Elders Hall's chosen next Grand Inspector. That explains why the assassins won't stop pursuing her. And our hero still hides his identity and motives while the attackers close in. He tells Dan So-ok later and delays the explanation. She protests that he still doesn't trust her even now. Boor's answer gets cut off when an attack drops from above. He strikes upward once, destroys the hidden weapon, and turns toward the remaining assassins. But the assassins reach the refuge much sooner than Boo expects. The two defenders outside can't stop their human wave assault. Bro braces himself as more attackers close in on Dan So-ok. Then Boo knows he might not win, but he won't leave Dan So-ok undefended. Outside, the attackers draw closer. An unseen assassin breaks the silence and calls him an arrogant brat. The assassins smash through the door and rush him together. Boor draws both blades, meets them head-on, and blocks their path to Dan So-ok. Our boy cuts through the attackers and keeps every blade away from Dan So-ok. One assassin locks blades with him at close range, but Boo wins and strikes him down. Then Dude drives his blade between the masked attacker's eyes and kills him. Their fight tears apart the wooden refuge around them. Boo cuts down the final attacker. Boo checks the wrecked refuge. Bodies cover the floor. He has killed the entire wave before anyone reaches Dan So-ok. The fight leaves Boor bleeding and worn out, but he can't rest yet. Another presence approaches, and he realizes he hasn't killed every attacker. So a fresh masked attacker closes in while preparing a concealed weapon. The guy is still exhausted from the slaughter. The sudden approach catches him off guard. Now the masked attacker orders Boo aside and claims victory is certain. Bro refuses to abandon Dan So-ok. Wounded and bleeding, he raises his sword for another fight, but barely steadies himself before the masked attacker strikes across the refuge. The wounded protector is forced straight back into combat, and now Boo braces behind his sword while the masked attacker keeps pressing him. He demands to know why a non-assassin entered the assassin's battle. That question assassin puts Boo's hidden allegiance under suspicion. The masked attacker swings for Boo's neck, but this guy blocks the killing blow. Boo answers with his own blade, and neither fighter breaks through. Still wounded, he gets no chance to recover, and the masked attacker comes down with another decisive strike. Bro meets the impact head-on instead of retreating. The clash leaves him bleeding and in pain. Still, he stays conscious and keeps protecting Dan Sook. Then Boo realizes his current blade can't overpower the masked attacker's heavy weapon. He needs a heavy sword of his own. For now, he survives another direct clash. Now another powerful attack comes at Boo among the fallen fighters. He gathers his strength. He keeps parrying the surrounding attackers. Their superior numbers still can't break his defense. The masked attacker closes in. The masked attacker slashes the wounded our hero again. He follows with a one-handed Heavenly Overlord Saber Extreme stance. Boo has no choice but to meet it directly. So Dude answers with his decisive heavy sword strike. He cuts the masked attacker down. He leaves him screaming in agony, but another blade is already drawn. Boo still can't recover. Boo wins, but he's left badly wounded. The masked assassin still decides he's too dangerous to spare. He declares, "You're far too dangerous to leave alive." Before our boy can recover, the masked assassin lunges with his blade. He tries to finish Boo right there, but Bro slips past the finishing strike and lands safely. He answers, "I'll look forward to it." Their fight isn't finished, but Boo stays hidden as another slash tears through the doorway. Neither fighter is backing away yet, but finally releases the strength he's kept hidden. The effort leaves him battered, gripping a broken blade. The ruined hall goes silent. So Dan Soki rushes over when the guy collapses and begs him not to die. She tearfully admits how worried she's been about Master Ho, but can barely answer. Still holding the wounded Bro, Dan So-ok asks who he really is. He drops the name Master Ho and answers, "Boo Yun-sol. That is my name." Then Dan So-ok freezes at the revelation while Boo struggles to remain conscious, and she asks him to confirm his name and real face. He can't hide his identity anymore. And a white-haired martial artist crashes into the ruined hall while calling for Dan So-ok. He finds numerous fighters already defeated and fears she's been caught in the attack. Boo remains beside Dan So-ok despite his wounds. She tells the white-haired martial artist that Master Ho protected her. A sudden disturbance puts this guy back on alert. Far more armed disciples arrive than expected and surround Boo. They identify him as number 18. Dude defeats one attacker and faces the rest. He says, "I only did what was required of me." Now Boo answers for the violence before the Elder and Dan So-ok. He admits his own behavior was wrong. Boo apologizes and says his overconfidence made him mistreat the Elder. Boo's apology keeps the Elder cautious, but our hero formally acknowledges him and offers his hand. He truly wants to settle their dispute. The Elder studies Boo's hand before firmly accepting it. He praises Boo's skill and character, calling him a true man among men. Then the black-robed man reluctantly admits he has no argument. The Elder promises Dan So-ok he'll hunt down those responsible after they reach headquarters. Meanwhile, an injured person reaches toward the red spider lilies. This isn't finished, and the group prepares to leave as townspeople gather around the transport. And before they depart, a man urgently warns them. Two dark-robed figures confront someone kneeling nearby. But watches the carriage leave, and the woman inside waves goodbye, and an urgent shout suddenly pulls his attention back toward the town. So Bro gets ready to intervene. Nearby, a superior berates his subordinate for failing to lure Woo Moon-hong away. Another conspirator realizes their scheme has failed. A furious conspirator accuses the others of cutting ties. Their alliance falls apart, and armed operatives rush into the fight. One devastating strike cuts through them, so the survivors brace for another attack. But everyone else is already dead. Investigators arrive. A subordinate reports the massacre to the seated authority. No witnesses remain to identify the killer. Now the pavilion investigators mobilize every intelligence network to find who ordered the massacre. Another violent incident erupts inside the pavilion. Someone is still erasing evidence. The investigating leader confirms the instigators killed their own operatives to silence them. He prepares to strike back, and his subordinate accepts the order. Meanwhile, an official confirms Dan So-ok is safe. He learns her protector is Boo, number 18 of the Yuyang branch's 9 Killers unit. Realizing Boo matters, he commits his real name to memory. But daylight fades, and the investigation leads to a snowy village. Boo's next assignment is about to begin there. A bell suddenly rings through the village, catching our boy off guard, and he clutches his chest until his comrades tease him and offer another drink. Their invitation reminds Boo how close they've become. They survive 9 Killers missions considered nearly impossible together. Over time, orders turn into shared drinks and quiet jokes. And as everyone settles down, one comrade mentions Boo's promise to leave the 9 Killers unit around now. His unresolved departure returns to the conversation. Then another comrade brings 3 jars onto the snowy rooftop and asks Bro to drink properly, and Boo watches the bright moon, but his comrade keeps pressing him. News that a masked man was murdered ends Boo's quiet drink. A guide names the Demon Gathering Pavilion as his destination. Boo prepares to leave his comrades and return to work. Then at the Demon Gathering Pavilion, the guy recalls a terrified young man and an elder's solemn warning. Those memories make the danger surrounding this assignment clear. Boo remembers his comrades telling him to endure hardship and live happily, and they also tell him to return whenever life becomes unbearable. Their warmth stays with him as duty pulls him away. Now Dude fondly calls two comrades silly old men. Another is short-tempered and arrogant, so he often starts fights despite being sincere. So Boo pushes the memories aside. Boo approaches the Demon Gathering Pavilion. As he opens the doors, someone inside senses him. A masked assassin has already caught the legendary Yueyang branch assassin unprepared. He mocks that carelessness as Boo walks straight into the confrontation. The masked agent tests this guy with a blade, but Boo doesn't flinch. He asks, which one of us is actually careless? Bro sensed the attack coming, and the masked agent immediately throws an envelope at him. Boo catches it cleanly. Boo checks the new assignment inside. The masked agent says Boo is the youngest operative ever given this rare assignment. He even admits his envy. Our hero only replies, I have a bad feeling about this. Boor reads the level A order. Boor learns why they chose him. The demonic hall accuses the Gong twins of spying for the Murim alliance. Bro must eliminate them, and the order gives Boo no choice, and his first friends are officially branded as spies and marked for death. So Boo considers refusing, but the demonic hall would punish Nangya Pavilion. With the pavilion held hostage, he accepts and prepares to hunt the Gong twins. Our boy confronts the Gairim branch representative and makes his demand. The representative agrees, and Boo calls it a wise decision. Their cooperation offers another way forward. Then Dude prepares for the covert operation and realizes he won't need to kill them. Believing he can spare his comrades, he heads toward the mission site with his sword ready. While entering the Gairim branch, Boo weighs the evidence again. The Gong twins were demoted for beating a spy to death. That history could support the accusation, but it could also weaken it. But Boo confirms the branch manager's identity and stabs him fatally. The wounded manager asks which sect sent him. The guy answers, I am Boo of Nangya Pavilion, and openly claims the killing. So the dying manager recognizes Boo's affiliation and fears he's one of the 10 demonic champions. Bro identifies himself as number 18 of the Akyang branch. This confirms the killing is an official operation. The accusation against the Gong twins still bothers Boor, so he investigates their supposed allegiance. He learns that orthodox and unorthodox sects both train covert agents professionally. Their alleged role doesn't prove where their loyalty lies. Since the evidence proves nothing, Boo invites his comrades to drink in a bamboo grove. They're surprised and grateful because he's never bought them drinks before. Soon they've emptied several jars together. Then the drinking ends, but this guy stays seated with his cup. Snow settles around the grove as his silence changes the mood. One comrade senses Boo's serious reason and reluctantly starts speaking. The comrade hesitates because telling the truth will end their friendship. He finally admits why Boor arranged this farewell gathering. Everyone falls silent, knowing the coming confrontation can't be avoided. Now the confession confirms they're accused of serving the orthodox sect. One person is already forced to their knees over it. They can't return anywhere, leaving Bro to choose between them and Nangya Pavilion. And the gray-haired man regrets that he can't return to the demonic hall. He explains how the organization first judged his service. With his identity exposed, he no longer has a home there. Now the gray-haired man reveals that the demonic hall once praised his results. His missions destroyed orthodox sect intelligence networks throughout Akyang. He made the branch manageable for anyone, and that success also made him replaceable. The fight leaves two comrades dead, and Boo sits alone in the snow. Nearly 6 months into the martial world, he admits they were his first real friends. Then he remembers accepting the price of protecting Nangya Pavilion. Bum must kill those friends himself, leaving their happier days as memories he can't recover. Now his memories stop, and the battle resumes. An enemy attacks without warning, but our hero senses the strike before it reaches him. And Boo dodges the first strike, then draws his weapon. The older attacker swings a sickle-like weapon and whip while another swordsman closes in. Their combined attack drives Dude backward. So Boo holds against attacks coming from several directions. One attacker finally brings down a decisive strike, knocking a fighter out of the clash. The force scatters the remaining fighters, and one of them falls toward the ground. The gray-haired swordsman stays confident and tells Boo, impressive as always. Our boy answers him without hesitation, you cannot defeat me. The 9 killer's comrades prove otherwise, knocking him back as one swordswoman blocks another sudden strike. So a spear catches a sword while the 9 killer's comrades keep attacking together. A swordsman answers with an upward strike, but Boor stays focused and prepares his response. Their coordinated attacks force the gray-haired fighter to evade another incoming strike. Their weapons slam against Boo's defense, and a hooked weapon sweeps toward him. Bro raises his sword and blocks it. Meanwhile, the chain wielder redirects the hook as another swordsman charges Boo. Both attackers trained under the 9 great sects. Their teamwork is just as dangerous as their individual skill. And the 9 killers' comrades blend the 9 great sects' ultimate arts with demonic weapons. Boo blocks their coordinated strikes. Boo searches for an opening, but the guy adapts their combined technique into his own sword and fist counterattack. attack. He blasts them backward through the bamboo, then drives forward with another hard slash. Bu's slash breaks their coordinated assault, but the chain fighters recover and attack from several directions. He tracks every hooked chain. He prepares for their next combination. Then Bu meets the renewed chain attack with another sharp counter. Their numbers don't overwhelm him. Even as another hook closes in, he's already adapting to their rhythm. Bro finally breaks through their coordinated attack. The impact leaves two comrades bloodied in the snowy bamboo grove. This isn't a battle anymore. It's an execution. Then one wounded comrade asks Bu why, but the fighting continues. Another readies his chained weapon, and Bu fatally impales him with a counterattack. So the dying comrade remembers Mei-un, calling this guy a stubborn younger brother. He gives Bu one final piece of advice, then dies from his wounds. It's their farewell. Dude finishes the wounded comrade and pauses over his body in the snowy bamboo grove. He buries his grief because protecting Nangya Pavilion means completing the demonic hall's order. Bu buries his comrades beneath two mounds in the snowy bamboo grove. He marks their graves with their weapons. Exposed agents have nowhere to return, so their deaths are final. Now Bu suppresses his grief. Bu returns to Nangya Pavilion. Completing the demonic hall's order protects it, but he still has to report what he's done. Back at Nangya Pavilion, our hero reports that he obeyed the demonic hall's order. He confirms that he killed the Gong twins, forcing himself to name what he did. The Nangya authority doubts the Gong twins were the entire final mission. He presses Bu to reveal what he's hiding. Bro holds back his grief because he believes emotion could endanger Nangya Pavilion. And Bu's mentor brings him to a barren training ground and orders him to draw his sword. Bu doesn't understand why, but he knows this lesson begins with a direct fight. And Bu trusts that his mentor has a reason for demanding this duel. He steadies his weapon, he attacks first, ready to test his improved swordsmanship. Our boy brings his opening strike down, but the green-robed swordsman calmly blocks it. He declares that his stance has no openings. Bo searches for a way through, but his improved swordsmanship still can't break that defense. Then the green-robed swordsman counters and lands a heavy strike on Bro. He admits Bu has improved considerably, but says he still hasn't reached his squad leader's level. Bor takes another punishing hit, but he keeps fighting. Each exchange exposes the gap between his improved swordsmanship and the swordsman's control. Their blades keep colliding, so the green-robed swordsman announces his next attack and commits to the strike. The guy meets it head-on. Their weapons collide with enough force to shake the ground. So the green-robed swordsman drives his attack through the training ground. The force tears across the ground and shatters the surrounding rock, but watches the attack slice a huge rock apart in one motion. Wait, no. The continuing barrage reveals several techniques chained together so smoothly they appear to be one strike. That single attack links 108 techniques without one pause. Its power comes from complete control, not raw force. Watching from the peak, Dude realizes repeated breakthroughs still won't bring him close to that reachable realm. But the Deputy Pavilion Lord calls it the swordsmanship of the ultimate heaven realm, but can only stare. This technique shows him just how much further his own swordsmanship can advance. The Deputy Pavilion Lord explains that one strike contains every variation of swordsmanship in the world. Since danger can appear anytime, Bu clears his mind. He decides to focus entirely on martial arts. This guy asks to continue today's lesson and commits himself to more training. The Deputy Pavilion Lord welcomes that determination, and he tells Bu to seek his guidance whenever necessary. And Bro takes the lesson into the snowy forest and starts training alone. He drives his sword downward again and again. Each strike tests whether he can reproduce the ultimate heaven realm's principles. Then the direct imitation puts Bu under severe strain. Every swing becomes a fight to control the technique. He still can't reproduce the Deputy Pavilion Lord's mastery, but realizes he doesn't need a perfect imitation. He can merge its core principles with his other techniques that would create an approach suited to his own abilities. Then our hero condenses the 13 forms of the Rain of Flowers into one strike. After that, he tests the combined technique repeatedly across the snowy wilderness. Bor keeps refining the fuse technique until one huge strike tears through the training ground. It explodes against the mountain. His approach releases far more power than direct imitation. Now Bro enters secluded training to complete this new martial art. 1 year passes. During that time, he develops the fusion beyond its destructive early form. So after 1 year in seclusion, Bu returns to the forest. He's ready to test the finished technique, Heavenly Flow. Bu swings once. Bu unleashes Heavenly Flow. The strike proves he's fused every martial art into something new. Heavenly Flow rips through the forest and wrecks the clearing. Our boy calmly says, "It's finally complete." And as the smoke and debris settle, Bu asks, "Did I finally do it?" The ruined ground answers him. Heavenly Flow combines the Deputy Pavilion Lord sword art with every martial art Dude has mastered. Their principles become one strike. With training finished, a messenger greets Bu as leader and praises his progress. The Deputy Pavilion Lord has summoned him. And back at Nangya Pavilion, the Deputy Pavilion Lord asks how Bu wants to spend the coming year. The guy didn't expect that choice. So Bu considers what he still needs beyond secluded training. Before he answers, an angry woman objects to Baekhyun. The argument doesn't change Bu's decision. Nangya Pavilion sends him to Dongpyo Seorang in Guizhou, surprising an amused woman nearby. Then Bro reaches the crowded town of Dongpyo Dongpyo Seorang under a conical hat, and he quietly questions residents and begins traveling through Jianghu. Bu finds Dongpyo Seorang crowded with visitors. Excited wanderers confirm it's become a major gathering place for Murim. But Bu remembers Dongpyo Seorang began as low-ranking wanderers handling simple errands. Over 20 years, it grew into a huge alliance. Its headquarters now offers valuable Jianghu experience and information, from errand runners to a small empire somehow. So regular martial arts tournaments fueled that growth. This guy attends the current gathering. He gathers information while hiding beneath his hat. A grateful young man approaches after Bu helps him. Now, the young man bows and sincerely thanks bro, and he returns the favor by sharing a meal. By dusk, Bu joins his group and gains direct access to information about Dongpyo Seorang. Their conversation turns to a legendary divine blade that can cut through souls. Heavenly Flow releases more energy than Bu's current swords can handle. This blade could solve that problem. Then a swordsman accuses a man of murder and theft. The accusation starts a confrontation inside the hall. The young swordsman vows to kill him and avenge his sect leader. The accused killer only laughs. A robed elder begs everyone in the hall to help punish him. The bystanders refuse to intervene, leaving the swordsman's group alone. Before they understand why, the muscular man counterattacks. He fatally cuts down one accuser, and Bu dismisses one bystander as an inexperienced rookie. The muscular killer demands to know who intervened. Before he finishes speaking, our hero cuts him down and ends the confrontation. Now Bu finishes the strike despite the killer's attempt to resist. The surviving accusers and witnesses recoil. Their companion's killer falls in an instant. The rescued man bows to Dude after the killer falls. He promises to repay Bu for saving him, leaving Bu with a future favor. Then our boy enters Dongpyo Seorang's grand hall beneath his conical hat. The chief steward formally opens the gathering and brings Bu's mission before everyone. The steward announces the third rule. Anyone interfering with Dongpyo Seorang or harming its wanderers will be punished. The gathered crowd openly approves, and Bu declares his identity before everyone. I am Bu Yunsol. The onlookers recognize him as the fast swordsman from the tavern. They expect him to advance after his one-strike victory. Another swordsman gets ready to challenge him. So more competitors gather around the drums after Bu's declaration. The martial artists prepare to test each other's skills and affiliations. As the tournament begins, one confident participant confronts another fighter. He says, I already knew you were from the pointed spear sect. Concealed affiliations are already coming out. The participant recognizes his opponent's sword as a pointed spear sect weapon. That exposes the man's hidden affiliation and shocks a nearby woman. The competitors have been investigating each other's backgrounds. So the identified swordsman left the Murim Alliance after only 1 year. He has wandered the Jianghu ever since, making his allegiance uncertain, but watches him as the tournament continues. A green-robed competitor orders Bu to leave the tournament. Bu calmly refuses. Bu prepares to fight. The competitor draws his sword and attacks when intimidation fails. Another competitor says Bu's refusal is just as expected. A headband-wearing fighter studies the confrontation closely. The other participants are already judging how the guy handles pressure. And so, one fighter rushes in. Another follows with a second sword attack. Bu has to meet them immediately. But a swordswoman dives into the close fight with an aerial slash. Bro counters in time, and both techniques collide with heavy force. The swordswoman regains her footing and raises both blades while Bu absorbs the impact. The clash reminds him of when his bloodlust once escaped his control. Then, in that memory, the swordswoman uses a dangerous attack she believes can defeat Bu. He spots an opening mid-strike. He closes in with a decisive counter. This guy slips past the swordswoman's attack and uses the opening immediately. His counter grazes her face, proving he has completely read her technique. Then Bu finishes the counter before the swordswoman can recover. She collapses beside her sword, barely understanding how quickly she lost. So the swordswoman remains on the ground while the nearby swordsmen stare in disbelief. Dude has already ended the fight and calmly left the field. The swordswoman runs through the exchange and understands what happened, but used one brief opening to turn her sword attack into the finishing counter. Her collapse confirms Bu's victory. The observers study his sword extremity stance, heavy sword arts, speed, and footwork. One admits, I've never encountered an opponent like this before. Now another opponent boasts that the Murim Alliance recognizes him as a genius. He assumes that makes him superior, but Bu prepares the decisive counter. Our hero takes the self-proclaimed genius's heavy strike and waits for one opening. He counters and stops his blade just short of the fighter's forehead. So Bu knocks away the fighter's sword and holds him at blade point. The disarmed man bows and admits, I lost, which sends Bro forward in the tournament. And Bu calls the defeated fighter's explanation an excuse and sends him back to Mount Zhongchang. He won't let the man soften what his defeat means. And Bu tells the kneeling fighter to reconsider his abilities after returning to his sect. He walks away, leaving the man disarmed and defeated. Meanwhile, one observer refuses to to judge our boy yet. He believes Boo's unusual abilities will become clearer as the tournament continues. Then that night, Boo studies the remaining bracket and plans his coming matches. Keeping his abilities hidden reminds him of serving the 9 killing squad under another face. Meanwhile, a masked assassin confronts a young scholar carrying scrolls. The scholar's armed defender moves to protect him, but attackers strike from both directions. So, Bro learns that Eomha, the greatest hero among wanderers, is his next opponent. His righteous deeds have earned him a formidable reputation. Bo admits he won't be an easy opponent. He suddenly senses someone approaching and prepares to meet the intruder. So Boo demands to know why the masked intruder entered his room. The intruder draws a weapon instead, turning the encounter hostile immediately. Now the masked intruder attacks without warning, but the guy reacts in time. He stops the blade at close range, forcing them into a direct clash. Boo recognizes the technique as heavenly axis yoga, but the gray-haired man denies using it. He claims it's the muscle-reducing bone-shrinking art. Wanderers hide their past behind aliases, so he refuses to reveal his identity. But the gray-haired man says he needs a favor from Dude. His sudden outburst makes the room tense, while Boo calmly waits for the request. The gray-haired man finally gives his request. Boo must kill his opponent, Eom Hwa. He shows no concern about the deadly clash he's ordering, and this guy receives another assassination target.